Chapter 2484. Sakyamuni. After Zhuoan summoned the black-clothed Zhuoan, he took out a large number of calamity crystal veins from his spirit ring. In the past, he obtained a large number of calamity crystal veins in the cloudy clear round crescent, which was enough for the black-clothed Zhuoan to pass 19 wind disasters. It's just that in the past few years, the black-clothed Zhuoan's cultivation speed has been relatively slow due to fear of wind disasters. Now that he has the pill fire, he naturally has no scruples. If the black-clothed Zhuoan goes all out, Zhuoan estimates that the black-clothed Zhuoan will be able to pass 19 wind disasters in 10 years. After settling the black-clothed Zhuoan, Zhuoan sat cross-legged in the spirit-gathering formation. Waves of rich starry sky energy poured into Zhuoan's body like a tide, spreading along his 8 extraordinary meridians. An indescribable feeling of comfort made Zhuo when unable to help but cry out in pleasure. He hasn't felt this carefree for a long time. Moreover, he found that the heavenly Tao in the starry sky energy of the 9th heaven is extremely complete, much more complete than the 8 heavens. Thinking of what Palace Master Jingyun said at the beginning, that there are many cultivators in the 9th heaven who have reached the 9th heaven, Zhuoan believed it a little. In such a complete environment, as long as one has good talent and works hard, there is still a great chance to comprehend the heavenly Tao and advance to the 9th heaven. With such a good cultivation environment, Zhuoan naturally won't let it go easily. As long as he can break through to the life enlightenment realm here, coupled with the power of his ninefold Tao intent, Zhuoan knows that he doesn't need to be afraid of Palace Master Wujue. Although his strength may not be the opponent of Palace Master Wujue at that time, Palace Master Wujue will have to think twice if he wants to kill him. Moreover, Zhuoan's ultimate trump card, the Tao slaughtering hegemonic technique, can also be cultivated at that time. Once he succeeds, he won't be afraid of Palace Master Wujue at all. Of course, whether or not he could advance to the life-comprehending realm was still debatable. After all, the 9 steps of the virtual sky world was the highest realm in the virtual sky world. It wasn't something he could achieve just by thinking about it. Time ticked by, and Zhuoan stayed here for 10 years. During these 10 years, other than taking care of Desireless, Zhuoan had been diligently cultivating within the spirit-gathering array. Ever since Desireless was injured by old Lord Tusita, he had been unconscious the entire time. Furthermore, Zhuoan felt that Palace Master Wujue had something that could be used against Desireless. Once he was able to leave this place, he would first make a trip to Huaxia Heaven region. He had to first restore Desireless' 6 desires. Perhaps, he would be able to wake Desireless up at that time. At this moment, there were 6 figures standing outside the stone gate. Zhuoan was familiar with 3 of them. They were Yemor Zi, Elder Tusita, and Palace Master Wujue, whom he had fought 10 years ago in the 6 Desires Palace. As for the other 3 people, they were unfamiliar faces. However, the auras on their bodies contained the powerful auras of the cycle of life and death. They should be absolute powerhouses of the 2 extremes of life and death. Among the 3 unfamiliar people, one of them had the strongest aura among the 6. This person stood in front of the 6 people. There was a golden vertical bar between his eyebrows, as if there was a golden eye between his eyebrows. The other 5 people looked at this figure with fear in their eyes. Although they were all in the 2 extremes of life and death, the aura on this man with the golden vertical bar was much more terrifying and powerful than that of the other 5 people present. Sakyamuni, I didn't expect you to also come. A white-haired, lazy young man said in a deep voice as he looked at the man with the golden vertical bar with some fear. If Zhuoan was standing here, he would definitely be able to recognize this man with the golden vertical bar as Sakyamuni, who had used Heavenly Armor Planet as a wager back then. Although he had only seen Sakyamuni's projection back then, he would never forget the domineering aura on Sakyamuni's body. Sakyamuni looked at the purple patterns on the stone door in front of him and frowned. Isn't this power Taiching's Tao intent? But it's even stronger than Taiching's Tao intent. Taiching hasn't come yet? As he said that, Sakyamuni looked at Palace Master Wujue. This time, Palace Master Wujue had summoned the other 7 heaven lords to the door of profundity. Now, Sakyamuni domains Sakyamuni, Mahesvara domains Unfettered One, Yemor domains Yemor domains Yemor domain, Tusita domains Old Lord Tusita domain, and limitless light domains Wu Liang domain were all present. However, Mahesvara domains Mahesvara and Huaxia domains Taiching were not present. Palace Master Wu Jue smiled bitterly. Mahesvara has never interacted with the other heavens, so he refused. Taiching said he didn't have time, so he didn't come either. Sakra coldly snorted and said, "That trash of the great Brahma domain is stuck in his own place all day long, selfish and self-centered. If it weren't for the fact that the great Brahma domain is the place with the thinnest energy among the 8 heavens, I would have killed that trash and snatched the great Brahma domain. But why doesn't Taiching have time? Didn't you tell him about the situation here?" Palace Master Wu Jue said, "I've already told him. I even said that this place might have something to do with his Tao intent, but Taiching said he wasn't interested, so he didn't come." Sakyamuni frowned. Since Taiching had already said so, Sakyamuni had nothing to say. Clearly, Taiching had made up his mind not to come. "The 3 of you couldn't open this stone door when you worked together." Sakyamuni turned his head, looked at Palace Master Wu Jue, Old Lord Tusita, and Yemor Zi, and asked in a deep voice. Old Lord Tusita nodded and said, "Yes, this stone door is extraordinarily hard. The 3 of us even used our respective heaven-breaking sources, but we still couldn't open it. Could it be that this stone door is a heaven-breaking divine artifact?" Sakyamuni sneered and said, "Do you still believe that what you have is the heaven-breaking sources? After being the lords of heavens for so many years, you should have realized that the heaven-breaking sources are simply a lie. We are just frogs at the bottom of the well. What we have is not the heaven-breaking sources at all. At most, it can only be regarded as the heavenly Tao origin, and an extremely incomplete one at that. I'm afraid that there should be a lot of heavenly Tao origin in the 9th heaven." Sakyamuni mocked. The other 5 fell silent. After becoming the lords of heavens, they have been studying the heavenly Tao origin of their respective heavens. Indeed, they found that the heavenly Tao origin wasn't as powerful and terrifying as they imagined. If it was really the heaven-breaking sources, even if it was just a trace, it would be enough to break the heavenly Tao and break free from the shackles of the 8 heavens, but they didn't have it. "Then what do you think this stone door is?" Palace Master Wu Jue asked. "I don't know, but I know that this stone door shouldn't be a divine artifact. It's more like a sealed door. As for what it is, we can only talk about it after we open it. The 6 of us will take out our respective heavenly Tao origin and work together to open the stone door." After Sakyamuni finished speaking, the golden vertical strip between his eyebrows suddenly split open, and an ancient and terrifying power emerged from it. Everyone knew that this was Sakyamuni's heavenly Tao origin. It was the most powerful heavenly Tao origin among the 8 heavens. Chapter 2485. Bang on the stone gate. After Sakyamuni used the heavenly domain sources, the other 5 heavenly lords no longer held back and summoned their respective heavenly domain sources. 6 types of terrifying heavenly domain sources bombarded the stone gate one after another. Palace Master Wu Jue was pleasantly surprised to find that the stone gate, which had remained motionless for the past 10 years, began to tremble slightly under the joint attack of the 6 types of heavenly domain sources. The power of the heavenly domain sources is really effective. The stone gate has begun to tremble violently. Old Lord Tusita also showed a look of joy. The trembling of the stone gate became more and more violent. The power of the 6 heavenly domain sources is too great. Under the influence of this terrifying power, the star covering the stone gate was completely shattered, exposing the 10-meter-tall stone gate. Inside the stone gate, Zhuoan slowly opened his eyes. He sighed softly and said, "The starry sky energy of the 9th heaven is indeed rich. In just 10 years, I improved from the initial stage of the 8th step to the peak of the 8th step, but the time is too short. I almost reached the half-step 9th step." Speaking of this, Zhuoan glanced at the black-clothed Zhuoan not far away. At this moment, the aura exuding from the black-clothed Zhuoan is extremely powerful and terrifying. It's many times stronger than 10 years ago. Zhuoan showed a satisfied look. The black-clothed Zhuoan has already survived 18 wind disasters, and the 19th wind disaster is about to arrive. He knows that as long as his avatar survives the 19th wind disaster, he will be able to activate the mark placed on him by Lord Brahma. At that time, he will be directly teleported back to the Tower of Hanno. Lord Brahma's cultivation base is only around the life enlightenment realm. The current Zhuoan really doesn't put him in his eyes. However, what he is afraid of is the heavenly domain sources controlled by Lord Brahma. Although Great Brahma's cultivation wasn't high, since he was able to become the ruler of a heaven region, and the fact that the Great Brahma heaven domain was able to survive until now despite being in such a backward state, there had to be something unique about him. Therefore, although Zhuoan was no longer afraid of Great Brahma, he did not let down his guard because of this. After all, to be able to become the ruler of the heavenly region, none of them were simple. Moreover, if Zhuoan returned to the Great Brahma domain this time, he was prepared to make another trip to the bloodstained cliff. He planned to retrieve the eyes and heart of that Tao-confirming expert. He had the aura of that mysterious head, so he knew that taking back the eyes and heart of that Tao-confirming expert should not be too much of an obstacle. Moreover, he believed that there would definitely be other good things in the bloodstained cliff. After all, he had originally planned to enter the bloodstained cliff again. Just as Zhuoan was letting his imagination run wild, the space inside the stone door began to shake violently. Zhuoan could not help but stagger, almost falling down. What happened? Zhuoan's eyes were filled with bewilderment. Soon after, a terrifyingly powerful divine sense quietly extended to the stone door. Then, he gloomily discovered that there were actually 6 experts outside the stone door constantly bombarding it. Among the 6, Zhuoan naturally knew Palace Master Wujue, Yemorzi, and Old Lord Tusita. However, he did not know the other 3 at all. However, among the 6, one of them caught Zhuoan's attention. This person had a golden vertical bar between his eyebrows. His aura was the strongest among the 6, which made Zhuoan extremely wary. Moreover, after feeling the domineering aura from this person, Zhuoan could not help but think of a person in his mind, and that was Sakyamuni. Back then, the aura of Sakyamuni's illusory figure outside the heavenly armor planet coincided with this person's aura. Zhuoan took a deep breath. He knew that this person was probably Sakyamuni, and the other 2 he did not know should be the rulers of the other 2 heavenly regions. These 6 people, together with Great Brahma and Taiching who did not appear, formed the 8 rulers of the heavenly regions. Zhuoan's eyes were gloomy. He knew that the matter of the Door of Profundity must have been told to the other rulers by Palace Master Wujue. Sakyamuni, who was originally controlling the heavenly domain's origin, had a cold look in his eyes. His terrifying divine sense suddenly surged out, turning into a powerful storm that completely shattered Zhuoan's extended divine sense. Zhuoan groaned and hurriedly retracted his divine sense. His eyes were filled with fear. This Sakyamuni was so strong, even stronger than Palace Master Wujue. According to the strength that Sakyamuni had displayed, Zhuoan knew that Sakyamuni was not far from the Tao-confirming realm. I have to leave this place quickly. Once they break through the stone door, I will be in trouble. Zhuoan's eyes were filled with determination. He immediately looked at the black-clothed Zhuoan who was sitting in the Calamity Crystal Stone vein not far away. He knew that his clone was about to break through. At that time, the 19th Calamity Wind Calamity would descend. The Pillfire was lying on the black-clothed Zhuoan's shoulder, revealing an extremely human-like expression of desire and excitement. The Pillfire had clearly sensed the 19th Calamity Wind Calamity and could not wait to devour the calamity energy of the 19th Calamity Wind Calamity. At this moment, the space around the stone door trembled even more violently. It was as if the heavens and earth were falling apart. Zhuoan probed with his divine sense and found that the stone door in front of him had actually started to crack. Zhuoan frowned. Although the stone door was extremely sturdy, it was still difficult for it to withstand the combined attacks of 6 rulers of the heavenly regions. Furthermore, these 6 rulers of the heavenly regions all used the power of the heavenly domain's origin. The increase in power was extremely terrifying. Thinking of this, Zhuoan looked at the black-clothed Zhuoan nervously. He naturally hoped that his clone would break through as soon as possible. Outside the stone door, Sakyamuni activated the heavenly domain's origin. He immediately turned to Palace Master Wujue and snorted, "Palace Master Wujue, there's still a cultivator inside the stone door?" The other four also turned their heads to look at Palace Master Wujue. They had also noticed Zhuo Wen's consciousness just now, and they had the same doubts as Sakura. When Palace Master Wujue notified them, he did not mention that there was a cultivator inside the stone door. Palace Master Wujue was calm and said, "There is indeed an ant inside. His cultivation is only at the 8th level of the Void Sky Realm. I discovered this stone door because I was chasing this kid. Furthermore, this kid has a method that I don't know of to open this stone door. This stone door is so sturdy, I'm afraid there must be something good inside. That's why I notified everyone. As for this kid, he is wanted by my 6 Desire Palace, so when you enter, please do not interfere with my 6 Desire Palace's private affairs." When Palace Master Wujue said this, everyone else nodded. If Palace Master Wujue was right, they did not care about a mere 8th level of the Void Sky Realm. Chapter 2486. Sakyamuni's killing intent. What's his name? Sakyamuni asked again. He felt that the divine sense just now was a little familiar. Although Palace Master Wujue was surprised that Sakyamuni would ask such a question, he didn't dare to offend Sakyamuni. After all, Sakyamuni was recognized as the strongest in the 8 heavens. His name is Zhuowen, and he shouldn't be from the 6 Desires heavenly realm. Palace Master Wujue said. Sakyamuni narrowed his eyes, but his expression soon returned to normal. He smiled and said, "Everyone, let's work harder and break this stone door open quickly. If there's really something good inside, I think everyone knows the rules. I won't say much." The other 5 nodded. They didn't say anything about the rules mentioned by Sakyamuni. Over the years, the lords of the 8 heavens have had some conflicts. In order to explore the 9th heaven, they entered many treasure lands of the 8 heavens and naturally found a lot of good things. The original rule was that whoever gets it can keep it, and no one can snatch the things obtained by others. In the eyes of the other heavens, such a rule was indeed reasonable. For a time, the attacks of the 6 heavens lords became fiercer, and the stone door became more and more difficult to break. Finally, half an hour later, the surface of the stone door burst into a terrifying purple light, and a powerful purple aura spread out like a purple shockwave. The 6 heavens lords were caught off guard and were forced to retreat by this terrifying purple shockwave. After a while, the purple shockwave gradually subsided, and then the purple fog world behind the broken stone door was revealed. Sakyamuni snorted coldly. Instead of retreating, he took a step forward and waved his sleeve. Suddenly, a terrifying gust of wind whistled out, and the thick purple fog in the world in front of him gradually dissipated. At the end of the purple fog, the 6 heavens lords found a transparent boundary. On the other side of the boundary was a different world. At the edge of this boundary, 2 figures were sitting cross-legged. These 2 figures had the same face, but their clothes were different, one in black and one in white. These 2 were naturally Zhuowen and his avatar. At this moment, the black-clothed Zhuowen suddenly opened his eyes. A terrifying black wind gathered around his body, and a powerful aura flowed out. The instant this black wind appeared, the pill fire lying on the black-clothed Zhuowen's shoulder whizzed out, transforming into a fire vortex that actually began to gradually devour the black wind surrounding the black-clothed Zhuowen's body. "Zhuowen, it's really you, die." Sakyamuni's eyes narrowed. His eyes narrowed, a cold sneer appeared on his face, his right hand turned into a claw, and a golden light burst out of his hand claw. He suddenly grasped at Zhuowen's body. Back then, Sakyamuni had already expected that Zhuowen had refined the infant devourer into his avatar. However, he didn't expect that Zhuowen's cultivation speed would be so fast. In less than 1,000 years, his cultivation had already reached the 8th Void Sky Realm. With the enmity between Zhuowen and Sakyamuni, Sakyamuni had originally planned to kill him when they were on the heavenly armor star. However, Taiching had intervened. Later, because he had lost a bet with Taiching had ordered that he wasn't allowed to take the initiative to find trouble with Zhuowen. This was also why Sakyamuni had been holed up in the Sakyamuni domain for so many years and hadn't taken the initiative to find trouble with Zhuowen. One of the reasons was that he had an agreement with Taiching. Otherwise, if Zhuowen had left the Huaxia domain and entered the Great Brahma domain, with Sakyamuni's means, he would have been able to easily find Zhuowen and eliminate Zhuowen. Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy. He immediately summoned the everlasting ice lotus, and at the same time, merged his 9 Dao intents into it. Bang! Sakyamuni's claw slammed down, and golden light surged. Zhuowen's right hand held the everlasting ice lotus as he suddenly retreated, involuntarily spitting out a mouthful of blood. Sakyamuni looked at Zhuowen in surprise. He hadn't expected that Zhuowen would be able to withstand his attack. One had to know that although he had only used 30% of his strength, it was enough to eliminate a life enlightenment realm expert. However, other than spitting out blood, Zhuowen didn't die because of it. You have some ability. You'd better die. Sakyamuni snorted coldly. His right hand formed into a claw, and he attacked again. This time, Sakyamuni didn't hold back at all. He directly grabbed at Zhuowen's vital parts. The terrifying aura was like the water pressure at the bottom of the sea, squeezing Zhuowen so hard that he couldn't move at all. Sakyamuni's cultivation was much stronger than Zhuowen's. Just the aura he released was enough to suppress Zhuowen to the point that he couldn't breathe. It was even difficult for him to move. Behind them, Palace Master Wujue saw this scene and frowned slightly. She was very dissatisfied with Sakyamuni attacking without permission. After all, she had already said that the cultivator behind the stone door was a criminal wanted by the Six Desires Palace. After entering the stone door, this person had to listen to their orders. However, Sakyamuni had directly attacked the cultivator behind the stone door. He didn't take her seriously at all. What made Palace Master Wujue helpless was that she didn't dare to say anything to Sakyamuni. Sakyamuni was much stronger than her. If she offended Sakyamuni because of Zhuowen, it wouldn't be wise at all. After Sakyamuni kills this kid, he must find a way to get his spirit ring, Palace Master Wujue muttered to herself. Palace Master Wujue muttered to herself. She knew that Desireless must have been hidden in Zhuowen's spirit ring. Bang! When Sakyamuni's attack was about to land on Zhuowen's head, a terrifying alchemy fire suddenly surged and immediately swept Zhuowen's body away. At the same time, it blasted Sakyamuni's attack. Bang! The alchemy fire was extremely fierce, but it only made Sakyamuni's body stop for a moment. Hey! This flame is unusual. It can actually dodge my attack. Sakyamuni looked at Zhuowen's body, which was wrapped in alchemy fire, and the black-clothed Zhuowen, who wasn't far away, in astonishment. Sakyamuni, wait until I, Zhuowen, reach the peak of cultivation. I'll definitely kill you. Within the alchemy fire, Zhuowen gritted his teeth and looked at Sakyamuni. Back then, all the creatures in the Heavenly Armor continent were treated as playthings by Sakyamuni. At that time, Zhuowen even called Sakyamuni's clone, Yang Yi, brother. All of this was completely destroyed after Yang Yi's betrayal. Now, Sakyamuni wanted to kill him as soon as he saw him. Zhuoan knew that if he, Zhuoan, didn't take revenge, he wouldn't be human. Do you think you still have a future? Although your cultivation speed surprises me, you're going to die here today. There's no future. Sakyamuni sneered. Golden light surged out from his body and golden circles appeared behind him. A terrifying aura surged out from these golden circles. The other 5 lords of heavenly regions were stunned. Even they could feel the terrifying energy contained in these golden circles. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, giant golden swords shot out from the countless golden circles. Each of these giant golden swords could shatter the starry sky and destroy the rules. Zhuowen looked at the densely packed golden swords, took a deep breath, and landed beside the black-robed Zhuowen. Chapter 2487. Insidious. The place where Zhuowen stood was now in ruins. Sakyamuni stood in place, frowning. This kid is really cunning. He even has a teleportation technique. He teleported away at the last moment, Sakyamuni said with an unfriendly expression. Palace Master Wujue's expression changed drastically. The reason why she broke open the stone door at all costs was mainly because of Zhuowen. Now that Zhuowen had escaped right under her nose, she was extremely angry, but she did not dare to vent her anger on Sakyamuni. Sakyamuni thought for a while, then turned to the 5 people behind him and said, "Everyone, let's search this space and see if there's anything good." With that, Sakyamuni took the lead and swept to the other places. His powerful consciousness searched the space mercilessly. The other 5 naturally did not want to be outdone. The reason why they worked together with the other lords of the heavens to break open the stone door was naturally because of the treasures inside. Otherwise, why would they risk their lives to help Palace Master Wujue? Wouldn't that be a thankless task? However, the 6 lords of the heavens searched the space a few times. When they gathered at the edge of the barrier again, their expressions did not look good. This was because they did not find anything in the space. Could it be that the kid took everything inside? Palace Master Wujue's beautiful eyes flashed as she said in a low voice. It's possible. After all, this kid stayed here for 10 years. If there really were treasures, I'm afraid he took them all away. Tusita Sage's expression did not look good either. Sakyamuni did not say anything. Instead, he went to where Zhuowen was just now. Spirit gathering array? Sakyamuni looked at the traces of the array at the edge of the barrier. This array was destroyed not long ago. Then, Sakyamuni's gaze fell on the barrier. He saw a different world on the other side of the barrier. This world was bigger and more magnificent than the 8 heavens. What rich starry sky energy! It's much richer than the 8 heavens. The other 5 lords of heavens also came to the edge of the barrier. Out of curiosity, Yemorzi reached out his hand to touch the barrier. Surprisingly, there was no resistance at all when he reached into the world on the other side of the barrier. He was pleasantly surprised to find that the energy on the other side of the barrier was extremely dense. Sakyamuni and the others also stretched their hands out of the barrier and found that the world on the other side of the barrier was different. Is the other side of this barrier the 9th heaven? Old Lord Tusita Sage guessed. Everyone's eyes lit up. They felt that Old Lord Tusita's guess was very likely correct. If it's really the 9th heaven, then it's really a piece of cake for us. I always thought that if I wanted to go to the 9th heaven, I would have to reach the Tao confirming realm to cross the chasm between the 8 heavens and the 9th heaven. Now it seems that there is no need at all. We just need to pass through this barrier. Tusita Sage said excitedly. The 6 people present were the true experts who stood at the peak of the 8 heavens. Naturally, they knew a lot of secrets. They know that there is an extremely mysterious 9th heaven above the 8 heavens. The 9th heaven is mysterious and powerful. It's said that it's not in the starry sky where the 8 heavens are located, but in an extremely distant place outside the starry sky. At the end of the starry sky, there is a natural barrier that blocks the connection between the 8 heavens and the 9th heaven. It's said that to pass through this natural barrier, one must at least succeed in reaching the Tao confirming realm. Otherwise, one will die in the natural barrier. Most of the powerhouses of the 8 heavens who reached the Tao-confirming realm have left this place and went to the natural barrier in the starry sky. Of course, there are also extremely bold existences who went to the natural barrier when they were in the life and death boundary, but all of them died on the spot without exception. Although the lords of the 8 heavens know the existence of the 9th heaven, and they are eager to enter the 9th heaven and step into a higher realm, they know that the natural barrier is not something that can be entered by cultivators in the life and death boundary. Once you enter the natural barrier, you will die without a doubt, unless you're a Tao-confirming realm powerhouse. The other side of this barrier must be the 9th heaven. I'll go in and take a look. Boundless Photon excitedly took a step forward and rushed into the barrier. I'll also go in and take a look. Yemor Z, who was wearing an animal skin, was also an impatient person. When Infinite Light entered the barrier, he also went inside. Sakyamuni, Palace Master Wujue, Old Lord Tusita, and Xiaoyaro Z were also a little tempted, but they were more cautious and didn't enter rashly. The 4 of them waited for a long time, but Yemor Z and Infinite Light didn't come out of the barrier. After Yemor Z and Infinite Light entered, they didn't give us any signal until now. Did something happen to them? Old Lord Tusita said solemnly. Sakyamuni's eyes were cold. With a wave of his sleeve, a golden light flashed and turned into a human figure. This is my avatar, connected to my divine sense. Let him enter and we will know whether it is safe or not, Sakyamuni said, then waved his hand, and the golden figure entered the barrier. After waiting for a while, Sakyamuni's face became solemn. Sakyamuni, what's going on? Isn't the 9th heaven on the other side of the barrier? Xiaoyaro Z asked anxiously. Sakyamuni shook his head, and his eyes became even more solemn. The other side of the barrier is indeed the 9th heaven. The starry sky energy inside is definitely something I have never seen before. Even the heavenly laws are extremely complete. It's just that, after hearing Sakyamuni say that the other side of the barrier is indeed the 9th heaven, everyone breathed a sigh of relief, but Palace Master Wujue immediately asked. Then why do you have such an expression, Brother Di? Sakyamuni was silent for a moment, then sighed softly. What you see on the other side of the barrier is an illusion. Once you enter the barrier, you will find yourself in a dangerous place. There are many dangers inside. My avatar was destroyed as soon as he entered. What? It's a dangerous place? How is it compared to the heavenly moat in the starry sky? Xiaoyaro Z asked quickly. Sakyamuni thought for a moment and said seriously. It's completely different from the heavenly moat. The danger is naturally much lower, but it still shouldn't be underestimated. It should be more suitable for cultivators in the life and death boundary to enter, but there is also a certain risk. If you want to enter, you have to think carefully. The other 3 looked at each other. Among them, Palace Master Wujue's beautiful eyes flickered as she said, I still have some things to deal with, so I won't go in. I'll take my leave first. Haha, I have nothing to worry about. It's easier to reach the Tao-confirming realm in the 9th heaven, so why not go in? Xiaoyaro Z was quite free and easy. He didn't hesitate to enter the barrier. Old Lord Tusita looked at Sakyamuni seriously and said, Brother Di, is what you said just now true? Sakyamuni nodded and said, Of course, it's true. Old Lord Tusita thought for a while and nodded. I'll go in too. Just as Old Lord Tusita was about to enter, Sakyamuni suddenly attacked. Sakyamuni's right hand turned into a blade. Golden light flashed, and Old Lord Tusita's right hand was chopped off. After that, Sakyamuni slammed it into the barrier. Sakyamuni, you. The moment Old Lord Tusita was pushed into the barrier, he looked at Sakyamuni in disbelief. Then, Sakyamuni's joking voice sounded in his ears. Chapter 2488. Tao confirming divine pill. When Old Lord Tusita's figure completely disappeared from the barrier, Sakyamuni took off the spirit ring on Old Lord Tusita's finger with an expressionless face. After erasing the imprint on the spirit ring, Sakyamuni rummaged through the spirit ring and took out a divine pill with Tao rhythm flowing around it. The Tao rhythm of this divine pill is much richer than the Tao fruit. It's definitely not an ordinary divine pill. The corners of Sakyamuni's mouth were full of smiles. He knows that this divine pill with Tao rhythm flowing around it is the Tao-confirming divine pill, and it's also the only one in the 8 heavens. This Tao-confirming divine pill was passed down by the previous Heavenly Lord Tusita. The previous Heavenly Lord spent a lot of effort to refine it, and he finally succeeded in refining this Tao-confirming divine pill. With this Tao-confirming divine pill, I should be able to successfully reach the Tao-confirming realm. When I finally become a Tao-confirming realm powerhouse, that old man Tai Ching won't be able to restrain me, and the original Bet won't be able to do anything to me. After I destroy Zhuoan, I will absorb all the heavenly sources of the 8 heavens, and then head to the 9th heaven. Sakyamuni laughed, then looked at the barrier in front of him. His eyes flickered, and he said coldly, "The other side of this barrier should also be the 9th heaven, but it's an extremely dangerous place, even more terrifying than the natural moat. It's ridiculous that Xiao Yarozi and the others don't have any tricks up their sleeves." After saying that, Sakyamuni looked at the transparent barrier in front of him with a sneer, and immediately left this place. The clone condensed by Sakyamuni just now was connected to his mind, although it was destroyed by an unknown force the moment it entered the other side of the barrier. However, the moment Sakyamuni's clone was destroyed, he still saw the remains of Yemorzi and Wu Lianghua. Obviously, these two were instantly destroyed as soon as they entered this place. Originally, Sakyamuni planned to remind the other heavenly lords, but he immediately gave up the idea. The 8 Sky Lords were originally in a relationship of mutual restraint. If one of the Sky Lords launched an attack on another sky, it would immediately cause the other Sky Lords to join forces and attack. Sakyamuni's ambition has always been great, and he is the strongest heavenly lord of the 8 heavens, but because of the restraint of the 8 heavenly lords, he hasn't dared to act recklessly for countless years. Furthermore, Sakra was extremely afraid of Hua Xia Sky Domain's Tai Ching because Tai Ching of Hua Xia Sky Domain was the most mysterious Sky Domain lord among the 8 Sky Domains. Sakyamuni is very clear that his chances of success is the heavenly lord will be very low. And if Sakyamuni really attacks, and the heavenly lords of the other heavens will join the heavenly lord. Together with the other heavenly lords of the other heavens, Sakyamuni's King Heaven's King Lord Heaven Lord. Heavens is heavenly heavens is S. And if he can use this danger zone to get rid of 4 or 5 heavenly lords, Sakyamuni isn't afraid of facing heavenly lord alone. He's mainly afraid of the other heavenly lords joining forces. Although Sakyamuni is strong, he's not strong enough to fight against the 7 heavenly lords. Moreover, the reason he used such a vicious scheme was also because of the Tao-confirming divine pill on old Lord Tusita. Tusita Sage Strength is one of the strongest heavenly lords. Even Sakyamuni would have to put in a lot of effort to deal with Tusita Sage. That's why Sakyamuni used such a vicious scheme, and he did succeed. Of the 5 heavenly lords who came with him, except for Palace Master Wujue who left early, the other 4 heavenly lords all entered the danger zone on the other side of the barrier. But what Sakyamuni didn't expect was that after he left the barrier, a strange black withered arm slowly reached out from within the barrier. After Palace Master Wujue returned to 6 Desires Palace, her beautiful eyes were focused and flickering. The reason why she left early was mainly because her 6th sense was much sharper than ordinary cultivators. At that time, she felt that the other side of the barrier was extremely dangerous. It's not that she hasn't been to the outer realm heavenly moat before, but she felt that the world on the other side of the barrier was much more terrifying than the heavenly moat. As for Sakyamuni's words, she didn't believe them at all. Sakyamuni was ambitious, Palace Master Wujue always knew that, so she believed him. In her eyes, it was asking a tiger for its skin. At that time, Palace Master Wujue didn't dare to tell the other heavenly lords. After all, it was only her guess. And if she said it, it would make Sakyamuni suspect that she sensed something. Perhaps then Sakyamuni would make things difficult for her. With Palace Master Wujue's personality, she naturally wouldn't stand out. If she could protect herself, she wouldn't do anything unnecessary. Palace Master Wujue, you left quite quickly. An indifferent voice suddenly came from behind Palace Master Wujue and it sounded quietly. Palace Master Wujue was taken aback. She immediately turned around and looked at the stalwart man behind her with a look of surprise. Sakyamuni? Didn't you go to the 9th heaven? Palace Master Wujue frowned. Sakyamuni picked a seat at random and sat down. He smiled faintly and said, "They went in first. I still have some other things to do, so I'll go in later." But why didn't Palace Master Wujue go in? After all, this barrier was found in your 6 desires heavenly realm. Aren't you interested in the 9th heaven on the other side of the barrier? Palace Master Wujue immediately stretched out her hand and took out the ancient zither transformed from spring snow. Her jade-like hands plucked the zither strings, and invisible ripples spread out densely. Bang! 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 Suddenly, terrifying shockwaves exploded, and the huge palace of desire turned into ruins. Sakyamuni, what do you mean by this? Palace Master Wujue's angry voice sounded from the ruins, but unfortunately, what responded to her was an even stronger attack. For a moment, the sky above the Palace of Desire was filled with the aftermath of the terrifying divine power of life and death. The disciples of the 6 Desires Palace who were nearby were all turned into nothingness by the aftermath of the terrifying divine power of life and death. Chapter 2489. Snatching the celestial origin. At this moment, Sakyamuni's entire body was wrapped in golden light. The golden vertical bar between his eyebrows was even brighter than the sun. It was as if the space between his eyebrows contained the energy of countless stars. Palace Master Wujue, on the other hand, was holding an ancient zither made of milky white energy. Her face was gloomy as she plucked the zither strings. Relying on the surging energy from the zither strings, she resisted Sakyamuni's violent energy. Yun Maozhe and Yaro Xiangjuan had already been teleported out by Palace Master Wujue. Now, they were protected by the other 4 Palace Masters. These 2 were the most talented disciples of 6 Desire Palace. Naturally, they had to protect them well and not let any accidents happen to them. "Martial Uncle, what's going on?" Yaro Xiangjuan asked in confusion. Palace Master Jingyun's face turned ugly. She said, "I don't know what's wrong with Sakyamuni. He actually entered Desire Palace and suddenly attacked Palace Master Wujue." Sakyamuni? Yun Maozhe was shocked. He had naturally heard of Sakyamuni's reputation. He was recognized as the strongest person in the 8 celestial domains. He was also a peerless expert who was the closest to attaining the Tao. "What should we do?" "Martial Uncle," Yaro Xiangjuan said worriedly. Palace Master Hua Ting gritted her teeth and said, "We can only act according to the situation. This Sakyamuni is too terrifying. The difference between the 4 of us and Sakyamuni is too big. I'm afraid we can't even take one hit from him. Quickly, set up the palace protection array." Palace Master Jingyun said quickly. The other Palace Masters nodded and immediately went to set up the palace protection array. When the palace protection array was finally set up, the battle between Palace Master Wujue and Sakyamuni had reached its climax. The power of each of their attacks could be described as earth-shattering. Seeing this scene, the disciples of 6 Desire Palace were shocked. They did not expect a battle between 2 extreme experts of the life and death realm to be so terrifying. "Sakyamuni, what do you want? If you have any requests, just say it. Why do you have to attack without saying anything?" Palace Master Wujue was completely at a disadvantage. Her face was pale as she shouted at Sakyamuni. Sakyamuni took a step forward. His right Palace Master Wujue Yaru Wujue Yu Wujue 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 Wujue's Wujue 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 was Wujue's Wujue 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 Yui Wujue was you. Bang! The golden light and the white light blended together and finally exploded. Then, Palace Master Wujue spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated several thousand miles before kneeling on the ground. Sakyamuni stopped in front of Palace Master Wujue. His whole body was surrounded by golden light, and his hands were behind his back. He looked at Palace Master Wujue indifferently and said coldly, "The origin of the 6 Desires heavenly domain is the white snow in spring. Your Guqin, which is the manifestation of the origin, is too weak. Sakyamuni, What exactly do you want? Palace Master Wujue said angrily. She was attacked by Sakyamuni for no reason. Although Palace Master Wujue was afraid of Sakyamuni, it didn't mean that she wouldn't give in to Sakyamuni and get angry. Sakyamuni sneered and said, I want your life and the source of your 6 desires heavenly realm. Hand over the true source of spring snow. The true origin of the 8 heavenly domains was the core of the heavenly domain. The masters of the heavenly domains wouldn't casually carry it with them. If they didn't completely refine and absorb it, it would be difficult to hide the strong aura on it. Whether it was Palace Master Wujue, Sakyamuni, or Sakyamuni Tusita Sage and the others who were pushed into the boundary by Sakyamuni, the so-called source of the heavenly domain was only a projection of energy comprehended from the true source of the heavenly domain. They couldn't casually carry the true source of the heavenly domain with them. Therefore, after Sakyamuni tricked Tusita Sage and the others into the dangerous place behind the boundary, he planned to go to the various heavenly domains to search for the source of the heavenly domain. He knew very well that Tao validation not only required sufficient comprehension, but also sufficient energy. In the 8 heavenly domains, where the energy was scarce, it was very difficult to reach Tao validation because of the lack of energy and incomplete laws. However, the laws and energy in the source of the heavenly domain were extremely rich and complete. Sakyamuni cultivated to his current realm because he thoroughly comprehended the source of the Sakyamuni domain and absorbed almost all of the source energy of the Sakyamuni domain. Sakyamuni could feel that he only needed to absorb a part of the source energy of the heavenly domain, coupled with the Tao validation divine pill in his hand, he had an 80% chance of successfully reaching Tao validation. As for the extra source energy of the heavenly domain, Sakyamuni would naturally wait until he reached Tao validation to consolidate his Tao validation realm. After consolidating his Tao validation realm, he would deal with Zhuoan, and then leave the 8 heavenly domains for the 9th heaven. Palace Master Wujue's pupils shrank to the size of needles. With a fierce roar, he stared at Sakyamuni and said, Why? You attacked me and stole the source energy of the 6 desires heavenly domain. If the other heavenly domain lords learn of this, they will immediately join forces to besiege you. Sakyamuni smiled slightly but didn't speak. Instead, he took a step forward and formed a claw with his hand. Golden light flashed like lightning as he rushed towards the sky. Boom! Boom! Palace Master Wujue gritted her teeth and once again summoned the ancient zither transformed from spring white snow, wanting to fight to the death. She knew that with Sakyamuni's strength that suffocated her, it was only a matter of time before she was defeated and killed. However, she couldn't let this guy get the source energy of the 6 desires heavenly domain, so she had to delay Sakyamuni for now. Inside the palace protecting Grand Array, Palace Master Jingyun's face turned ugly. She said in a deep voice, Palace Master Wujue told us to escape quickly. She also said that the source energy of the heavenly domain is in Xiangjuan's body. We must take Xiangjuan and leave the 6 desires heavenly domain smoothly. The other 3 palace masters were shocked. Hua Ting's beautiful eyes narrowed as she said, Palace Master Wujue wouldn't say such things until the last moment. The rest of them fell silent. They could all hear the implied meaning in Hua Ting's words. It was obvious that Palace Master Wujue was at the end of her rope. Xiangjuan, if what Palace Master Wujue said is true, you are the hope of the 6 Desires Palace. We must take you away as soon as possible, Palace Master Jingyun said solemnly. But, Master, Yao Xiangjuan said with some pain. Xiangjuan, Sakyamuni is too terrifying. Do you want to die for nothing? Although I don't know what method Palace Master Wujue used to place the source energy of the 6 desires heavenly domain in your body, as long as you have this source energy, your cultivation speed will become extremely terrifying. You will reach the 2 extremes of life and death. Your strength will not be weaker than Sakyamuni's now. But if you die now, who will avenge Palace Master Wujue in the future? So you must calm down now, Palace Master Jingyun advised seriously. Yao Xiangjuan calmed down. Palace Master Jingyun was right. Her strength was too weak now. If she went up now, not only would she not be able to help Palace Master Wujue, but she would also lose her life. Martial aunt, I understand. If I succeed in my cultivation, I will definitely kill Sakyamuni. Yarrow Shangjuan's eyes were filled with killing intent. Chapter 2490. The Fall of Wujue Shangjuan. Come with us. There is an extremely secretive ancient teleportation array in the palace. That teleportation array can send you directly to the border of the Six Desires Heavenly Region. As long as we leave the Six Desires Heavenly Region, the NTI Shiva shouldn't be able to find us. Palace Master Wujue also wants us to go to the Huaxia Heavenly Region. Palace Master Jingyun said in a deep voice. Why? Yarrow Shangjuan was a little surprised. Palace Master Wujue and Sakyamuni were together with 4 other Heavenly Region lords. But now, only Sakyamuni came to the Six Desires Palace. There is no news about the other 4 Heavenly Region lords. I'm afraid. Palace Master Jingyun shook her head. Yarrow Shangjuan's face became serious. She had already guessed what Palace Master Jingyun said. The other 4 Heavenly Region lords might have met with misfortune because of Sakyamuni. Leave quickly. Suddenly, Palace Master Wujue let out a shrill scream. Then, the battlefield in the distance was suddenly covered by endless golden light. Then, the entire Six Desires Heavenly Region was dyed golden by the golden light. Let's go. Palace Master Jingyun didn't waste any more time. She grabbed Yarrow Shangjuan's hand and rushed towards the secretive ancient teleportation array. The ancient transmission array was located in the depths of the Desire Palace. When Palace Master Jingyun and Yarrow Shangjuan arrived here, the other 3 Palace Masters also followed behind with their respective disciples. Palace Master Jingyun came to the ancient teleportation array and quickly formed hand seals. Then, the ancient teleportation array burst out with dense and complicated runes. Shangjuan, go in quickly. The moment the ancient teleportation array burst out with light, Palace Master Jingyun pulled Yarrow Shangjuan and stepped into the ancient teleportation array. Then, the moment the other 3 Palace Masters were about to step into the ancient teleportation array, the entire Desire Palace began to tremble violently. Then, the Desire Palace collapsed as a huge golden palm crushed down. You want to leave? Do you think it's that easy? Sakyamuni's majestic voice came. The 3 Palace Masters and the elite disciples standing outside the ancient teleportation array, including Yun Maozhe, were all crushed into dust by the golden palm. Then, there was a terrifying ripple around the ancient teleportation array. It actually blocked the terrifying golden palm temporarily. Hey! You even set up a chain defense array on the teleportation array. But to me, it's nothing. Sakyamuni's go. Sakyamuni's voice came again. Then, the golden palm's palace, the golden palm became thicker. Run. Palace Master Jingyun and Palace Master Wujue and Wujue, Palace Master Wujue, Wujue, Palace Master Wujue. Wujue and Wujue Studio Yui Wujue. After Palace Master Jingyun and Yarrow Shangjuan disappeared from the teleportation array, a golden figure slowly landed in the ruins of the Desire Palace. He looked coldly at the dim teleportation array and said coldly, "Your luck is really good." Bang! Palace to palace to palace to palace to palace to palace. Was palace. The Palace Master Wujue spat out a mouthful of blood. She looked at Sakyamuni with hatred and said coldly, "I have already notified the other heavenly lords. You will be besieged by the other heavenly lords." Sakyamuni laughed and said, "Wujue, didn't you leave the stone gate space in advance because you felt that something was wrong? Otherwise, why would you leave there? Do you think I will be so reckless when I brazenly invade your Six Desires Palace?" Palace Master Wujue's pupils shrank. Her delicate body trembled. She said in disbelief, "Tusita Sage and the others? It's not what you think. I can't kill the 4 of them alone. The 4 of them have all entered the other side of the barrier." Speaking till here, Sakra's gaze revealed a proud look as he continued, "Back then when I created my clone, do you know what I saw?" Palace Master Wujue was silent. She knew that Sakyamuni's next words will definitely not be good news. "I saw the corpses of Yemor Z and Immeasurable Photon, who were in a hurry to enter the barrier. They died the moment they entered the barrier. Of course, my clone was only able to see their corpses before it was destroyed. Then I lied to old Lord Tusita and Xiao Yaozi. I said that although it is dangerous inside, it is indeed the ninth heaven, and the danger is much weaker than the heavenly moat. Then old Lord Tusita and Xiao Yaozi entered the barrier. Sakyamuni's mouth was full of pride. He was also a little surprised that he could eliminate the 4 heavenly lords so effortlessly. In addition to Palace Master Wujua in front of him, only Great Brahma and Tai Ching are left in the 8 heavens. Sakyamuni never put Great Brahma in his eyes. If he wants to destroy Great Brahma, he can do so with a flick of his finger. After listening to Sakyamuni's narration, Palace Master Wujua felt extremely regretful. She regretted not reminding old Lord Tusita and Xiao Yaozi of the dangers on the other side of the barrier. Unfortunately, because of Palace Master Wujua's selfishness, old Lord Tusita and Xiao Yaozi died, and because of that, she also lost her life. Wujua, I told you so much, not to show off, but to let you know that you still have a way out. Now, I have changed my mind. I don't need your life, I only need the origin of your 6 desires' heavenly realm. When the time comes, I can make you my dog. Sakyamuni said lightly. Palace Master Wujua laughed, and her laughter was full of mockery. Sakyamuni felt unhappy in his heart and slapped Palace Master Wujua to the ground. Sakyamuni, you'd better kill me. You will never get the origin of the 6 desires' heavenly realm. Palace Master Wujua mocked. Sakyamuni snorted coldly and lifted Palace Master Wujua up. Then, his powerful consciousness began to search inch by inch in the 6 desires starfield. After a while, Sakyamuni's expression became extremely ugly, because he did not find any aura of the heavenly realm's origin in the 6 desires starfield. Sakyamuni had already absorbed all the origin energy of the Sakyamuni domain, and was extremely sensitive to the energy of the origin. However, he did not feel any of it here. No, you put the heavenly realm's origin in that little girl? Sakyamuni suddenly looked at Palace Master Wujua in anger. Previously, when he killed the other palace masters of the Desire Palace, he sensed the aura of Yarou Shangjuan who was teleported away. At that time, he felt that the aura of this girl was familiar. He did not pay attention to it before, but now that he thought about it, wasn't that the aura of the heavenly realm's origin? Palace Master Wujua only sneered and did not speak. Chapter 2491. Top of Hanno Tower inside Great Brahma Palace, on a golden futon, Great Brahma slowly opened his eyes. He raised his head and looked in the direction of the Tower of Hanoi. The corners of his mouth curled up. Have we finally passed the 19th storm? Back then, he was able to reach the 60th floor so quickly. Perhaps he really can solve the riddle of the 64th floor. As long as he doesn't reach the 3rd level, I can easily destroy him. Great Brahma's eyes flashed with excitement. The Tower of Hanno was his greatest secret. It contained the secret of the Great Brahma domain's origin. Once he unraveled it, he would be able to make a final breakthrough, surpassing the Death Realm, and reach the heights of the Life and Death Realm. As long as his cultivation reached the life and death extremities, the other heaven rulers would no longer have the qualifications to look down on him, and he would also have the qualifications to be on equal footing with the other heaven rulers. Thinking of this, Great Brahma's heart was filled with joy and joy. Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes. He looked at his surroundings and breathed a sigh of relief. He knew that he had made the right bet. After surviving the 19th wind disaster, he had indeed activated the mark that Lord Brahma left on him and was teleported back to the Tower of Hanoi. Zhuowen, you're back so soon? A bewildered voice sounded. Then, Zhuowen saw the crepe myrtle star sovereign walk in front of Zhuowen with a strange expression. He sized up Zhuowen in disbelief. Zhuowen smiled and looked at crepe myrtle star. Senior, I've already transcended the 19th wind calamity. I'm very close to the 20th wind calamity, so I triggered the mark Great Brahma left on me. Crepe myrtle star sovereign's face froze. He opened his mouth and said, "It's only been a few hundred years, how did you?" But when he sensed Zhuowen's strong wind disaster aura, Crepe Myrtle Star Monarch stopped talking. He knew Zhuowen wasn't lying. At the same time, Purple Star Monarch also discovered that Zhuowen's cultivation had reached the peak of the Void Sky 8 steps. Brat, isn't your cultivation speed a little too fast? His cultivation has already reached the peak of the void sky 8th step. Myrtle Star Sovereign blushed with shame. Not only had Zhuowen's clone survived the 19th wind calamity, but his true body's cultivation had also reached the peak of the 8th void heaven ascension. To be able to cultivate so quickly while focusing on both, the Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign had never seen such a freak in all these years. Zhuowen smiled and said, "I was just lucky." Crepe Myrtle Star naturally didn't believe Zhuowen's words, but he also knew that this was Zhuowen's secret, so he didn't say anything. "Zhuowen, your cultivation speed is very fast, but your current strength is still inferior to that of Great Brahma. I advise you not to go to the 64th floor of the Tower of Hanno so early, or else." Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign did not finish his sentence, but he knew that Zhuowen understood what he meant. After all, some words did not need to be said so clearly. Zhuowen smiled and said, "Senior, don't worry. I also know some things. I also plan to continue cultivating in the Tower of Hanno for a while before ascending to the 64th floor." Although Zhuowen did not fear Great Brahma at all, the special energy in the Tower of Hanno could resonate with Tao intent. Therefore, Zhuowen wanted to use this time to see if he could improve the power of his Tao intent. He always felt that the 9th level Tao intent was broad and profound. The more he studied it, the more he felt that it was extraordinary and terrifying. Moreover, after he entered the 9th level Tao intent, he discovered that he had only entered the threshold of the 9th level Tao intent. It was only slightly better than the trace of 9th level Tao intent he had comprehended in the heavenly domain of Huashia. He had not even comprehended the power of the 9th level Tao intent's deeper level. And now, the energy in the Tower of Hanno could promote the power of Tao intent. Why would Zhuowen not want to do it? However, the energy on the 60th floor had little to no effect on Zhuowen, so Zhuowen planned to enter the 61st floor. "Senior Crepe Myrtle, I told you the method to decrypt the Tower of Hanno. How confident are you in entering the 64th floor now that you have mastered the method?" Zhuowen looked at Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign and asked. Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign scratched his head awkwardly and said with a smile, "I didn't understand the formula you mentioned at first, but after studying it for a while, I gradually figured out the pattern. Now, I have 100% confidence in entering the 64th floor of the Tower of Hanno. If that's the case, then come with me, Senior. The energy on the 60th floor is no longer of much use to us. As long as the riddle of the 64th floor is not solved, Great Brahma will not appear," Zhuowen said. Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign nodded. Although he had mastered the method, he did not dare to rashly go up. He was not confident that he would be a match for Great Brahma. However, if he joined Zhuowen, he felt that his chances would be much higher. Although Zhuowen's cultivation was not particularly high on the surface, Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign could feel that Zhuowen's strength was not as simple as it appeared on the surface. After reaching an agreement, Zhuowen solved the riddle of the 60th floor. Then, a staircase appeared on the 60th floor. Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign both went up the staircase to the 61st floor. As soon as they entered the 61st floor, a surge of unusual energy rushed into Zhuowen's body like a vortex. Zhuowen almost cried out. Taking out a futon, Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign sat down cross-legged and began to absorb the energy. He found that the energy could not only improve his cultivation, but the energy contained in it resonated with his Tao, causing his 9-level Tao to constantly improve. Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign also felt the surging energy on the 61st floor. His eyes lit up as he took out a futon and began to cultivate. Time slowly passed. A month later, Zhuowen stood up and began to solve the riddle of the 61st floor. Just like the 60th floor, after the riddle was solved, a staircase appeared. After reaching the 62nd floor, Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign continued to sit cross-legged and cultivate. 2 months later, Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign reached the 63rd floor. Half a year later, the two of them reached the 64th floor. Suddenly, Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign was jolted awake by a long howl. He immediately opened his eyes and looked at Zhuowen, who stood up not far away. Chapter 2492. The Tower of Hanoi exploded. This kid's doppelganger is already terrifying enough, but even his main body is so powerful. The purple star monarch looked at Zhuowen's figure with a complicated expression. An enormous illusory heavenly bridge flew out of Zhuowen's body and floated in the air. Zhuowen's illusory heavenly bridge was much larger than an ordinary cultivator's. At this moment, 8 steps were already lit up, and the 9th step was still dim. Zhuowen stepped onto the 8th step with a single step. Soon after, he stepped onto the 9th step with a single step. In an instant, half of the 9th step was lit up, and Zhuowen's right foot stopped on the 9th step. The terrifying pressure suppressed Zhuowen, and he was sweating profusely. Zhuowen smiled bitterly and said, "The pressure of the 9th step is really terrifying. There's still a long way to go before I can completely break through the illusory heavenly 9 steps." With that, Zhuowen slowly jumped down the 9th step. At the same time, the black-clothed Zhuowen also slowly walked to his main body's side. At this moment, the wind calamity aura on Zhuowen's body was much stronger than that of the purple star monarch. In the past half a year, the black-clothed Zhuowen had been squandering the calamity crystal veins in his spirit ring without any regard for his life, and finally, he completely broke through. If not for the fact that he was still in the Tower of Hanoi, the black-clothed Zhuowen would have immediately ushered in the 20th wind calamity. The purple star monarch looked at the black-clothed Zhuowen with some fear, but he was extremely puzzled. He had also broken through the 20th wind calamity. As long as he left the Tower of Hanoi, the 20th wind calamity would descend. Logically speaking, he and Zhuowen should be in the same realm. However, for some reason, he found that the wind calamity aura on Zhuowen's doppelganger was much stronger than his. Purple Star Sovereign knew that this might be because Zhuowen's avatar had an extraordinary background. "Brother Zhuo, once you solve the riddle of the 64th floor, the Tower of Hanoi will be opened, and Lord Brahma will descend. As for what else will happen, I'm not too sure, so you must be careful. It's best to wait until your true body's cultivation reaches the life enlightenment realm," Crepe Myrtle Star Monarch said in a deep voice. Zhuowen smiled and shook his head. Crepe Myrtle Star's method was indeed the safest, but Crepe Myrtle Star did not understand Zhuowen. Of course, after spending some time with Zhuowen, Crepe Myrtle Star gradually discovered that Zhuowen's strength was beyond his expectations. Therefore, he no longer addressed Zhuowen as his junior, but as his peer. "Brother Crepe Myrtle, I don't know how long it will take for me to reach the life enlightenment realm. Unless it's a heaven-defying opportunity, it's impossible." Zhuowen shook his head. Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign nodded in agreement. Although there was only half a step between the half-step void realm and the life enlightenment realm, this half a step was like the difference between heaven and earth. Once he crossed it, it would be a qualitative leap. Moreover, Zhuowen was not an ordinary cultivator. It was many times more difficult for him to reach the life enlightenment realm than other cultivators. Therefore, it would be too long for him to cultivate to the life enlightenment realm step by step. Zhuowen could not continue to stay in the Tower of Hanoi for so long. "Let's solve the riddle now. Lord Brahma's cultivation is only at the life enlightenment realm. Although he has grasped the heaven domain's origin, his comprehension shouldn't be high. His strength should be around the death enlightenment realm at most." Zhuowen's eyes flickered. With his current strength, he really did not fear Lord Brahma. Although he had never fought against an expert in the death enlightenment realm, even an expert in the life and death realm couldn't kill him. How could he be afraid of Lord Brahma, who was only in the death enlightenment realm? Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign originally wanted to persuade Zhuowen again, but seeing how determined he was, he did not say anything. He knew that with Zhuowen's personality, once he decided on something, there was no turning back. Zhuowen came to the red sandalwood table in front of the 60th floor. There were still 3 thin needles on the table, and on the needles were several inches large golden discs. In front of the needles was a piece of transparent paper. The purpose of this paper was to facilitate the trial takers in the Tower of Hanoi to write down the correct answer and then complete the trial on the corresponding floor. Zhuowen slowly wrote down the final answer. Then, he felt the entire Tower of Hanoi begin to tremble. Bang bang bang! A dense commotion sounded from the bottom of the Tower of Hanoi. What's going on? Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign was a little bewildered. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly. He also had some doubts in his heart. He did not expect such a situation to occur after solving the final riddle of the Tower of Hanno. At this moment, the cultivators in the Great Brahma Sky Palace and the surrounding cultivators were all alarmed. All the cultivators raised their heads to look at the Tower of Hanno that towered into the starry sky. They found that the Tower of Hanno began to explode layer by layer starting from the bottom. The Tower of Hanno was originally a huge tower formed by 64 huge golden discs stacked together. From the bottom of the tower, it was a golden disc. Now, the golden discs began to self-destruct from the bottom of the Tower of Hanno. The golden light that burst out was even more terrifying than the blazing sun. The golden discs continued to explode, and the entire Great Brahma sky domain was covered in blazing golden light. Magatama nodded and said, "It's very likely. If it's really Zhuowen, I'm afraid he's in a very bad situation. The Tower of Hanno is a trap for Zhuowen." "Then what should we do?" Mose asked anxiously. "Let's go and take a look. However, the two of you can't be impulsive. Although you have a good relationship with Zhuowen, it's unwise to offend the Great Brahma Sky Palace because of him. So, when the time comes, the two of you better behave. Otherwise, I won't take you there." Magatama looked at Mose and Yushan seriously. He knew that Mose and Yushan had a good relationship with Zhuowen, so he had to remind them in advance. Mose cupped his fists and said, "Father, don't worry. I know what to do." Yushan also cupped her fists and nodded. Chapter 2493. Goddess Luo reappears inside the half-moon hall. Yuezu and Elder Waning Moon stood side by side. Behind them, the cold-eyed Tong Chimei stood proudly. Something happened at the Tower of Hanno. "Let's go and take a look." Yuezu's eyes were solemn as she led Elder Waning Moon and Tong Chimei into the ancient teleportation array. The moment Tong Chimei entered the ancient teleportation array, her eyes fell on the source of the golden light. She muttered, "Zhuowen, is that you?" In addition to the Half-Moon Hall and Heavenly Devil Island, the ancestors of the Qi Refinement Sword Sect, White Jade Pavilion, and Flower Butterfly Valley all teleported to the Great Brahma Sky Palace. Not only the 5 great sects, but countless sects and unaffiliated cultivators all rushed towards the Great Brahma Sky Palace like a swarm of locusts. When Magatama brought Yushan and Moji near the Great Brahma Sky Palace, he found that there were already many cultivators gathered nearby. Most of these cultivators were from the sects near the Great Brahma Sky Palace. Then, Magatama's gaze fell on the sky above the Great Brahma Sky Palace. There was a huge golden praying mat floating in the air. The 3-headed, 6-armed Great Brahma sat quietly on the golden praying mat while the golden-armored war god, Lei Gaochang, stood silently beside Great Brahma. Mo Tian noticed that Great Brahma, who originally had an indifferent expression, had a smear of excitement in his dark golden eyes. When Mo Tian saw this, he let out a soft sigh in his heart. He knew that Zhuowen was definitely inside the pagoda of Hanat. "Brother Magatama, what happened here?" A crisp voice sounded. Magatama turned around and saw Yuezu slowly walking over with Elder Waning Moon and Tong Chimei. Yuezu looked at Magatama with a faint smile. Magatama hurriedly stepped forward. Yuezu was the strongest person in the 10 great sects. He was a half-step Void Sky 9th step cultivator. He was much stronger than Magatama, who was at the peak of Void Sky 8th step. Magatama naturally didn't dare to be careless. "I just got here too. It seems like the puzzle in the Tower of Haina has been solved by someone," Magatama guessed. "Oh, could it be Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign? I remember that the Crepe Myrtle Star Monarch was trapped in the Tower of Hanoi for countless years. If anything happens to the Tower of Hanoi, it must be related to the Crepe Myrtle Star Monarch," Yuezu said. Magatama smiled and said, "It might not be Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign. It could also be that Zhuowen's talent is extremely terrifying. Back then, Great Brahma also left an imprint on Zhuowen's body." "Zhuowen?" Yuezu revealed a surprised expression and then looked at Elder Waning Moon and Tong Chimei. She had never seen Zhuowen before, but she often heard about him from Elder Waning Moon and Tong Chimei. What surprised Yuezu even more was that both Elder Waning Moon and Tong Chimei held Zhuowen in high esteem. However, Yuezu didn't believe it. After all, Zhuowen was just a junior. What kind of great ability could he have? I remember that Zhuowen participated in the last interstellar tournament, right? And it's only been a few hundred years since the interstellar tournament. Can this kid really solve the Tower of Haina? Yuezu said doubtfully. Magatama smiled bitterly and said, this is just a guess. It's very likely that it's Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign. However, whether it's Zhuowen or Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign, I'm afraid that their fates won't be any better. Yuezu fell silent. In fact, the ancestors of the 10 great sects all knew about the secret of the Tower of Haina. However, because Great Brahma was the sole leader, although they were very dissatisfied, they didn't dare to rebel against Great Brahma. Little did they know that the brilliant Luo Shun had also been destroyed by Great Brahma. Their talent and strength were far inferior to Luo Shun's. What could they use to rebel against Great Brahma? Therefore, they could only silently endure it and turn a blind eye to it. At this moment, there were only 4 golden discs left in the Tower of Haina. The speed at which these 4 golden discs were exploding had greatly decreased. However, the terrifying energy produced by each explosion was much more terrifying than the previous 60 explosions. On the 64th floor, Zhuowen's expression was extremely ugly. He found that he had fallen into Great Brahma's trap. Great Brahma didn't plan to fight him at all. Instead, he used the method of destroying the Tower of Haina to destroy any living beings in the Tower of Haina. That damn Great Brahma. This was his plan from the beginning. Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign cursed. Zhuowen took a deep breath, then looked at Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign and said, Brother Crepe Myrtle, do you believe me? Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign was stunned and looked at Zhuowen in confusion. If Brother Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign believes me, then enter the Kanglan secret realm. I, Zhuowen, will definitely risk my life to protect your life, Zhuowen said seriously. Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign hesitated for a moment, then immediately agreed, Brother Zhuo, Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign's life is in your hands. I believe you. Thank you. Zhuowen nodded and immediately put Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign into the Kanglan secret realm. Then, he raised his head with a solemn expression. Waves of purple spread out, then the purple gradually thickened and turned into purple mist. The purple mist instantly enveloped the entire 64th floor. Then, the purple mist began to solidify, forming purple ice crystals. The ice crystals gradually thickened and became hazy. My lord, that Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign should be dead for sure. This way, you can obtain the true heaven domain origin without any effort. My lord is indeed wise, Lei Gaochang couldn't help but say in admiration. At this moment, Lei Gaochang's aura was grand. He had actually advanced to the half-step void sky 9th step. Clearly, Lei Gaochang's advancement was due to Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma smiled but didn't say anything. But in next to no time, his expression changed, and the golden cushion he sat on suddenly exploded. Lei Gaochang, who was still praising Lord Brahma, was immediately blasted into powder by the terrifying force, turning into nothingness. Lord Brahma retreated a few thousand steps in a sorry state, staring ahead with a gloomy gaze. At the place where the golden futon had exploded, a beautiful figure in a white dress was floating slowly. It was an extremely beautiful woman in white. Her white clothes fluttered without wind, like a fairy from the 9 heavens, ethereal and mysterious. It's a life comprehension realm expert. Heavens, when did another life comprehension realm expert appear in our Great Brahma region? I've never seen this woman before. From the looks of it, she seems to have a grudge with Lord Brahma. She actually sneaked an attack on Lord Brahma. Magatama and Yuezu's pupils shrank. Although the white-clothed woman in front of them was extremely unfamiliar to them, her peerless figure was actually extremely similar to the Luo Shun from countless years ago. It's Luo Shun. Magatama and Yuezu both muttered in their hearts. Lord Brahma looked at the white-clothed woman who had appeared out of nowhere and asked coldly, "Who are you?" The white-clothed woman raised her head slightly. Her cold eyes seemed to be able to pierce through one's heart. She said indifferently, "Lord Brahma, the extreme west. Don't you have any impression of it?" Lord Brahma's pupils constricted as his expression turned ugly. Luotian? You didn't expect me to still be alive, did you? Today, I, Luotian, have returned to take revenge for the destruction of the palace, the deceit, and the death of my life. The white-clothed woman gently tapped her foot in the starry sky. Immediately, an invisible ripple spread out, and the white-clothed woman disappeared on the spot. Chapter 2494. Fire Phoenix. Great Brahma snorted coldly, clenched his 6 arms into fists and punched out. Boom! Terrifying shockwaves exploded in the starry sky. Then, Great Brahma and the woman in white each retreated a few thousand steps and faced each other. The cultivators in the starry sky had already retreated far away when the two of them collided. The battle between two great experts of the life-comprehending realm, even if it was the aftermath of the battle, was still extremely terrifying to them. As long as they came into contact with the slightest bit of it, they would be blasted into dregs. Even experts like Magatama and Uezu didn't dare to get close to the battlefield and retreated far away. The power of the Life Enlightenment realm's mysterious life divine power was far stronger than that of cultivators below the Life Enlightenment realm. It wasn't something that cultivators below the Life Enlightenment realm could withstand, not even the aftermath. Bang! 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 The white-dressed woman and Great Brahma's battle became more and more intense. Terrifying shockwaves rippled outwards, forming circular ripples. Wherever they passed, the starry skies would explode and shatter like shattered glass. The starry sky exploded, forming a terrifying black hole. The powerful suction force sucked in the cultivators who were close to the black hole. The golden light and the white light suddenly merged together, and then the white-clothed woman and Great Brahma separated again. The onlookers were surprised to find that Great Brahma's injuries were more terrifying than the woman in white's. Clearly, Great Brahma had been at a disadvantage in the battle just now. So strong. Luotian came prepared this time, Uezu said with some surprise. Magatama also nodded and smiled bitterly. Uezu, don't forget Great Brahma's trump card. Uezu frowned and fell silent. Although she hoped that Luotian could win, she knew that the chances were not high. Great Brahma wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and stared gloomily at the white-clothed woman in front of him. He said coldly, I really didn't expect you to become so strong after making a comeback. If I'm not wrong, you're already at the peak of the life comprehension realm. You're not far from the death comprehension realm. Your talent is truly terrifying. The woman in white stood in the starry sky like a flawless white lotus. There was no enmity between us back then, and we could have even worked together to develop the Great Brahma domain. However, you were too selfish and couldn't see others doing well. You saw me advance to the Life Enlightenment realm, but you didn't want to develop together. Instead, you were afraid that I would threaten your position. You deserved to be discriminated against by the other lords. The woman in white ridiculed Great Brahma mercilessly. Back then, she had been ambushed and killed by Great Brahma for no reason. Furthermore, the Luotian palace had been destroyed. Luotian herself was the most depressed. Great Brahma's expression was somewhat ugly. Great Brahma was naturally displeased to be exposed like this by Luotian. Luotian, although your cultivation has improved and reached the peak of the life comprehension realm, do you think you are my opponent with just this little bit of cultivation? Great Brahma domain, Great Brahma above, Great Brahmas, Brahma domain. This power became more and more turbulent, more and more surging. Then, Great Brahma's 30-foot body began to slowly expand. 10 feet. 100 feet. 1,000 feet. Until 100,000 feet. At this moment, Great Brahma appeared extremely huge and eye-catching in the starry sky. Luotian was like an insignificant ant standing in front of Great Brahma at this moment. Especially at this moment, the aura on Great Brahma's body caused the hearts of many cultivators present to palpitate. How terrifying. Great Brahma domain's aura has surpassed the Life Enlightenment realm, right? Magatama said with a serious look. He used the origin of the heavenly domain. Uezu sighed. Uezu knew that once Great Brahma domain used the origin of the heavenly domain, Luotian wouldn't be Great Brahma domain's match unless she broke through the Death Enlightenment realm. Luotian's gaze turned serious. She knew about the origin of the heavenly domain. She came prepared this time. This body has a trace of the Phoenix bloodline. The Phoenix is a powerful race on par with the Dragon clan. Moreover, the Phoenix is rarer than the Dragon clan, and its power is even more terrifying. All these years, other than recovering my strength, I've also been developing the Phoenix bloodline in this body. It's time to put it to use. Luotian muttered to herself. A spark ignited at the end of her fluttering sleeve. The spark was like a blazing fire. Luotian's petite body was immediately ignited by the red spark, turning into a boundless sea of fire. The surging flames continued to spread in the starry sky. Everything within a radius of 30,000 meters was enveloped by the flames. Afterwards, the invading flames began to slowly transform, forming a terrifying fire phoenix that was 30,000 meters tall. A clear bird cry resounded. Countless fire phoenixes formed by flames soared into the sky and pounced on Great Brahma Domain, who had transformed into a 10,000 feet tall giant. Great Brahma frowned slightly and snorted coldly. His 6 arms, which were as huge as mountains, suddenly clenched and smashed over. Golden light exploded and the starry sky trembled. Rumble. The two collided violently. Endless sparks flew. Each spark was dozens of feet tall, like a huge fireball. Bang! 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 At the moment of collision, the two continued to collide. Countless sparks formed a terrifying rain of fire. Many of the surrounding cultivators were caught off guard and were touched by the rain of fire. They were immediately burned to ashes. So strong. Since when did this Luotian become so strong? And that trump card of his is way too strong. To think that he can fight against Great Brahma, who has used the source of the heaven region to such an extent. Truly terrifying. Great Brahma Domain's face turned ugly. He realized that even if he used the origin power of the heavenly domain, he still couldn't take down Luotian. Moreover, the trump card that Luotian showed really shocked him. It was too terrifying. I'll kill you today. Great Brahma Domain snorted coldly. His 6 hands formed seals. The remaining gilded discs from the 61st to 64th floor of the Tower of Hanno trembled. Immediately, the gilded discs from the 61st to 63rd floor flew out and floated above Great Brahma Domain's head. However, the gilded discs from the 64th floor remained motionless. Great Brahma Domain was startled. However, with the enemy before him, he didn't think too much. He grabbed one of the gilded discs and threw it at the fire phoenix. The moment the gilded discs landed in front of the fire phoenix, a terrifying power erupted from the gilded discs. Then, it exploded. Terrifying golden energy poured out and covered the fire phoenix. Suddenly, the fire phoenix let out a painful cry. It flapped its wings and a powerful airflow swept out. It intended to disperse the golden energy produced by the explosion of the gilded discs. Chapter 2495. Star Monarch makes a move. The 2 gilded discs exploded again. The terrifying golden light completely covered the figure of the fire phoenix, and the fire phoenix let out an even more miserable cry. The explosion of the 3 gilded discs lasted for an hour before it gradually subsided. The golden light faded and the fire phoenix was no longer there. Instead, it was Luotian who was half kneeling in the starry sky. There were scattered flames around Luotian. These flames formed a layer of gauze that covered her body, preventing her from being completely annihilated by the terrifying explosion. Poochie. Luotian's face was pale as she spat out a mouthful of blood. Her beautiful eyes were filled with despair. Chen Shui, I'm sorry. I never thought that even using the Phoenix bloodline would fail. Luotian's eyes revealed an apologetic look. Over the years, she had attached a trace of her soul to Mu Chunshua's sea of consciousness. She had no ill intentions, she just wanted to seek revenge from Great Brahma. As long as she had her revenge, Luotian would redeem herself and would not harm Mu Chunshua in the slightest. But now, Luotian had miscalculated. She had come here just as Zhuoan had solved the final puzzle of the Tower of Hanno and completely opened it. And great Brahma had relied on the power of the explosion of the Tower of Hanno to completely suppress the power of the Phoenix bloodline that Luotian had unleashed. If Luotian had not come for revenge at such a coincidental time, she might have succeeded. Unfortunately, Luotian had chosen the wrong time. In the sea of consciousness, Mu Chen Shui's soul fell silent. She sighed softly and said, "I'm someone who has already died once. It's just that I can't accept it. I haven't seen my husband again." Luotian revealed a look of guilt, but she did not answer. She knew that this was her mistake, causing the two of them to be finished. Great Brahma stepped forward step by step. A giant palm grabbed Luotian in the palm of his hand. The three giant heads looked at Luotian in his hand and said, "Luotian, if the Tower of Hanno hadn't been opened today, I might not have been your match. Unfortunately, your luck is too bad. You actually chose today to seek revenge. The heavens are really helping me." Great Brahma laughed complacently, but the killing intent in his eyes intensified. Luotian had always been a big worry in his heart. Back then, he thought that Luotian had been completely destroyed by him. Even if he hadn't, it was almost impossible for Luotian to make a comeback. However, he had never expected that not only had Luotian made a comeback, but she had also improved even further. Her strength had actually reached such a level. Now, Great Brahma only wanted to eliminate this future threat as soon as possible. Luotian's eyes were filled with disappointment. She had indeed miscalculated this time. She actually chose to appear at this time to take revenge on Great Brahma. "Luotian, you can go in peace. This time, I will wipe out your physical body, soul, and sea of consciousness. Let's see if you can still make a comeback in the future." Great Brahma revealed a ferocious expression as he pinched Luotian's arm. Golden light exploded as terrifying energy poured into Luotian's delicate body, wanting to completely destroy Luotian's frail body. Moreover, this power was not only aimed at the physical body, but also at the deeper levels of the soul and the sea of consciousness. The intense pain caused Luotian to involuntarily look up to the sky and cry out in pain. As for Great Brahma, he let out a triumphant laugh. Bang! However, Great Brahma's smile only lasted for a moment before it completely stiffened. Because the arm that was holding Luotian was separated from his body in an instant, and then it was violently thrown away. Boom! The last remaining gilded disc in the Tower of Hanno finally exploded at this moment. However, the moment the exploding golden light was about to spread out, it was completely enveloped by a powerful purple force. Then, under the dumbfounded gazes of everyone, the terrifying explosive energy produced by the gilded disc self-destruction was completely shrunk into an indiscernible black spot under the purple force. Great Brahma's body stiffened. After his arm was blasted away by a mysterious force, he originally intended to take back the severed arm. But soon, he felt a terrifying aura firmly locked onto him. This aura contained peerless killing intent, cold and terrifying, causing Great Brahma to not dare to move at all. Because he knew very well that once he took back the severed arm, the owner of this aura would mercilessly kill him. "Who are you?" Great Brahma looked in front of him with an ugly expression because after the gilded disc exploded, it was wrapped in a layer of purple mist. He could not see the true face of the person in the purple mist at all. However, Great Brahma had a guess in his heart. He knew that this purple mist was either Zhuoan or Crepe Myrtle Star. It can't be Crepe Myrtle Star, right? The surrounding cultivators were in an uproar. Everyone in Great Brahma knew that Crepe Myrtle Star was trapped in the Tower of Hanno. Now that the Tower of Hanno had shattered and such a strange figure had appeared, it was obvious that there was no one else but Crepe Myrtle Star. Whoosh! After the uproar from the crowd, a figure suddenly rushed out of the purple mist and rapidly rushed towards Great Brahma. Everyone saw that this figure had disheveled hair, and there were broken chains on all four limbs of his body. Obviously, this person should have been chained somewhere before, but now he had broken free. "Great Brahma, you old bastard, this star will destroy you today." As soon as this strange person appeared, extreme lightning, extreme fire, and extreme wind surged out of his body. His every move was basically extreme energy. Boom! Great Brahma had already recovered his severed arm. Immediately, his 6 arms blasted out. Golden light soared into the sky like pillars of water, dyeing the entire starry sky golden yellow. The two collided hundreds of times in an instant and then retreated at the same time. Great Brahma retreated hundreds of steps, while the strange person retreated nearly 1,000 steps. Crepe Myrtle Star? Great Brahma's expression was very ugly. He stared at Crepe Myrtle Star as if he could not believe that he was still alive and had survived the 20th wind disaster to become a true third-level true god. Logically speaking, even if Crepe Myrtle Star was not killed by the explosion of the gilded disc on the last floor of the Tower of Hanno, he should have died under the 20th wind disaster. Great Brahma knew better than anyone how terrifying the 20th wind disaster was. It was definitely more powerful than the explosion of the gilded disc. But now, Crepe Myrtle Star appeared in front of him alive, and he seemed to be unharmed. Old bastard, you're stronger than before, but it doesn't matter. I have plenty of energy. Today, I must take you down. Crepe Myrtle Star did not care that he was at a disadvantage in the battle just now. He had just reached the 3rd level and did not have good control of the power of the 3rd level. Chapter 2496. Head on your neck again. Before Great Brahma could react, Purple Star Sovereign's extreme Tao power spread throughout his body and attacked Great Brahma again. Great Brahma wanted to ask where Zhuowen had gone, but unfortunately, Purple Star Sovereign didn't give him a chance to ask. Furthermore, Great Brahma was shocked to find that Purple Star Sovereign was getting stronger as the battle went on. In other words, he had a better grasp of the 3 extreme realms. Great Brahma had no choice but to take him seriously. As for Zhuowen, he had long forgotten about him. It's actually Purple Star Sovereign. I really didn't expect him to advance to the 3 extreme realms. He's so powerful. This time, Great Brahma has really shot himself in the foot. He thought that he could use Crepe Myrtle Starlord, but he never expected that he would succeed. After everyone recognized Purple Star Sovereign, an uproar broke out like a tide. Where's Zhuowen? Magatama whispered with a frown. Tongchime, who was standing behind Waning Moon, stared at the purple mist in the distant starry sky. She felt that there was another figure in the purple mist. Although her consciousness was basically blocked by the purple mist, she had a feeling that there was another person in the purple mist, and it was very likely that it was Zhuowen. Luotian struggled out of the broken hand and looked gratefully at Purple Star Sovereign, who was fighting Great Brahma in the distance. Although she didn't know Purple Star Sovereign, he had saved her. She would remember this kindness in her heart. Although this person has advanced to the 3 extreme realms, I'm afraid he can't kill Great Brahma. I'm also seriously injured. I'm afraid I can't kill Great Brahma today. I can only wait for an opportunity in the future. Luotian planned to leave the starry sky. However, she soon discovered that the mysterious purple mist not far away had actually stretched out a large purple hand and pinched her. Luotian activated the mysterious life divine power in her body but found that she couldn't break free from the terrifying purple hand. Then, the purple hand pulled her into the purple mist. Within the purple mist, there was a rather large space. In the center of the space, there was a cattail hassock. On the cattail hassock, a slender young man in white sat cross-legged. Behind the white-robed young man stood a black-robed young man. At that moment, the black-robed young man was surrounded by extremely terrifying extreme energy. Furthermore, his extreme energy was much more terrifying than Myrtle Star Starlord's from before. The black-clothed youth held a golden pagoda-shaped artifact in his right hand. Upon closer inspection, this pagoda-shaped artifact was a miniature version of the Tower of Hanoi. It's you. When Luotian's gaze fell on the face of the young man in white, she immediately opened her mouth wide and looked at the latter in disbelief. The young man in white slowly turned his head and smiled at the surprised Luotian. We meet again. I wonder how my wife is doing. Luotian shuddered. Although the young man in white had a smile on his face, she could feel the deep coldness and strong killing intent in his smile. Your wife is doing very well. I didn't take over her body and chose to live in symbiosis. As long as I take my revenge, I will immediately send myself to the afterlife and will never harass Chen Shui again. Luotian hurriedly said. At this moment, Luotian's heart was filled with panic. The moment she saw the young man in white in front of her, she had already thought of the young man she met when she was in the cloudy clear round void. At that time, Zhuowen was only at the void sky 7 steps. In her eyes, he was just an ant-like existence. Back then, he was an insignificant little fellow that she could destroy with a flip of her hand. But now, that ant from back then, just the killing intent he revealed was enough to make her heart skip a beat. Zhuowen glanced at Luotian. Immediately, his powerful divine sense drilled into Luotian's forehead. Zhuowen's divine sense was so powerful that it was comparable to the two extremes of life and death. Luotian's divine sense was indeed nothing in his eyes. After withdrawing his divine sense, Zhuowen's expression eased quite a bit. Luotian did not lie, he had indeed found Chen Shui's divine sense in Luotian's divine sense. Moreover, Chen Shui's divine sense was quite strong, almost on par with Luotian's. Moreover, it was well preserved. However, Chen Shui's divine sense was currently sealed for some reason. This also meant that Mu Chenshue's divine sense could sense the outside world, but she could not control her body. Right now, the control of her body was under the control of Luotian's divine sense. Are you serious? As long as you take your revenge, you'll immediately give control of your body to Chen Shui. Zhuowen looked at Luotian with a strange gaze. Luotian seriously said, "Relax, I, Luotian, have already made a vow to the heavens. I will definitely keep my word." Zhuowen nodded and slowly walked in front of Luotian. He reached out to gently stroke her soft hair and said in a gentle voice, "Chen Shui, as long as you can return, I will cut off Great Brahma's head for you." As soon as he finished speaking, Zhuowen stomped his foot, causing the surrounding violet mist to suddenly surge. After that, the black-clothed Zhuowen entered his main body. Instantly, Zhuowen's aura rose steadily to an extremely terrifying level. "Wait for me." After Zhuowen said this, he tore through the air and the purple mist completely dissipated at this moment. Luotian watched his back as he left and her beautiful eyes were filled with a complicated look. Peng. At this moment, Purple Star Sovereign was sent flying again. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth and his face was slightly pale. Although Purple Star Sovereign had reached the 3 extreme realms, there was still a gap between him and Great Brahma, who had the source energy. Just as Crepe Myrtle was about to charge forward again, he was stopped by a palm. Purple Star Sovereign looked at Zhuowen in confusion and said, "Brother Zhuo, what are you? Let me do it." Zhuowen said with a faint smile. Purple Star Sovereign hesitated for a moment before nodding. Zhuowen was much stronger than him. Moreover, it was thanks to the mysterious alchemy fire on Zhuowen that he was able to survive the 20th storm. Zhuowen, Great Brahma looked at the white-clothed youth with a gloomy expression. His eyes were filled with killing intent. He knew that the reason why the Tower of Hanno failed was probably because of Zhuowen. "Where's the source core in the Tower of Hanno?" Great Brahma asked coldly. "Are you talking about this?" Zhuowen flipped his right hand and the small Tower of Hanno appeared in his palm. "It's really with you. Bring it over." Great Brahma's eyes revealed a greedy look. He stomped his right foot and rushed toward Zhuowen. His 6 arms blasted out one after another, spewing out golden light like a terrifying sun. Zhuowen flipped his right hand again and put away the source core. Then, he clenched his right hand into a fist. The 3 terrifying extreme energies of extreme lightning, extreme fire, and extreme wind began to condense on his fist, fusing into an even more mysterious power. "I promised my wife that I would make her appear in front of me again. The price is to take your head," Zhuowen said softly as he stomped his left foot forward. Instantly, the surrounding starry sky collapsed with him as the center. Then, his right fist followed the momentum of his body and blasted out, smashing heavily in front of Great Brahma. When Zhuowen's fist landed in front of Great Brahma felt the pressure of death. This was the first time he had felt this pressure in countless years. Then, he found that his limbs were slowly eroding away, and his body gradually disappeared. "Urah!" A blood-curdling scream rang out. Then, Great Brahma's huge body collapsed and disappeared into nothingness. Only 3 huge heads were still floating in the starry sky. However, the eyes of the 3 heads had already lost their vitality. Chapter 2497. Taking over as the lord of the heavenly region with a wave of his sleeve, Zhuowen tossed the three heads toward Luotian, who was still in a daze. Great Brahma is dead. Your revenge has been avenged. Zhuowen's eyes were indifferent. After advancing to the three extreme realms, Zhuowen's strength had increased by too much. Purple Star Sovereign only had the body of a human. After advancing to the three extreme realms, his strength was close to the enlightenment of Death Realm. On the other hand, Zhuowen's clone was the Devourer King's body. With the Devourer King's body advancing to the three extreme realms, his strength naturally surpassed the enlightenment of Death Realm. Just the clone's strength alone was comparable to the two extreme realms of life and death. Moreover, this time, Zhuowen had merged his clone with his main body. With the two of them combined, his strength had risen to a terrifying level. He was probably on par with Palace Master Wu Ju. In addition, Zhuowen had attacked with his full strength. It would be strange if Great Brahma could block it. Luotian stared at the three heads in front of her in a daze. These three heads were the real Great Brahma's head. Luotian repeatedly used her divine sense to check and found that Great Brahma's aura was indeed gone. Whether it was his body or soul, there was no trace of him. It was clear that Great Brahma's body and soul had been destroyed in the attack just now. After a long time, Luotian sighed and stood up. She bowed deeply to Zhuowen and said, "Zhuowen, thank you for avenging me." Zhuowen calmly said, "Don't be mistaken. I didn't do it for you. I did it for my wife. Can you hand over control of the body to my wife now?" Luotian nodded and said, "If you want Chen Shui to regain control of the body, you have to expiate her soul. However, expiating her soul requires a very complicated ceremony." Zhuowen nodded and said, "All right. After I'm done with my matters here, I'll find a quiet place for you." Luotian cupped her hands at Zhuowen and said gratefully, "Thank you." Zhuowen nodded and didn't say anything. That was because the surrounding cultivators were gathering around them. The people at the front were all familiar to Zhuowen. They were Elder Waning Moon and Tong Chimei from Half Moon Hall. However, there was a tall woman in moon-white robes standing in front of them. Zhuowen guessed that this tall lady should be the Half Moon Hall's ancestor, Yuezhu. As for the three people beside the Half Moon Hall, Zhuowen knew all of them. They were Magatama, Moji, and Yushan from the Heavenly Devil Island. "Brother Zhuo, I didn't expect you to be so powerful when you returned to the Great Brahma domain after so many years." Magatama hurriedly stepped forward and greeted Zhuowen. However, his eyes were filled with complicated emotions. As for Mose and Yushan, who were following behind Mo Tian, they became extremely uneasy. Their gazes towards Zhuowen also became somewhat evasive. Thinking about how Zhuowen's cultivation base was similar to theirs back then, but now he could already kill the Great Brahma domain, the two of them didn't know how to greet him. Zhuowen nodded slightly at Moji and Yushan as a form of greeting. From Moji and Yushan's expressions, Zhuowen could still see their concerns. In the past, the difference in cultivation base between them wasn't that great, so they could become good friends. However, the gap in cultivation base between them was huge now. Zhuowen naturally didn't mind the difference in cultivation base. However, Moji and Yushan were clearly a little cautious and minded it. However, Zhuowen didn't say much. This matter couldn't be forced. "Greetings, Brother Zhuo." Yuezhu led Elder Waning Moon and Tong Chimei to hurriedly greet Zhuowen. There was a hint of eagerness in his tone. An expert who could kill the Great Brahma domain was someone they didn't dare to take lightly. Zhuowen smiled slightly at Tong Chimei. The latter's expression was calm. She also nodded at Zhuowen, but didn't say anything. "Brother Zhuo, you should be the one who solved the puzzle in the Tower of Hanno, right?" Yuezhu suddenly asked Zhuowen. Zhuowen nodded and didn't deny it. Only he and the Crepe Myrtle Star had come out of the Tower of Hanno. However, he was much stronger than the Crepe Myrtle Star. Apart from Zhuowen, there really couldn't be a second person. Then, the heavenly domain origin hidden in the Tower of Hanno is also in your hands? Yuezhu asked again. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and glanced at Yuezhu. He thought that Yuezhu really knew a lot. However, he didn't intend to hide it and just nodded. With the strength that Zhuowen had displayed, there were very few people in the Great Brahma domain who could be his match. Not to mention the Great Brahma domain, there were probably only a handful of people in the entire 8 heavens who could pose a threat to him. Yuezu's eyes were filled with excitement. He immediately looked at Zhuowen seriously and knelt on one knee. Brother Zhuo, since you have obtained the Great Brahma domain origin and defeated the Great Brahma domain, you are the new ruler of the Great Brahma domain. I hope you can take over the position of ruler of the Great Brahma domain. Yuezu's voice was very loud, and all the cultivators present heard it clearly. To Zhuowen's surprise, after Yuezu made this request, these cultivators actually followed suit and knelt on one knee on the ground, begging Zhuowen to take over as the new ruler of the heavenly domain. Zhuowen, the Great Brahma domain is the weakest of the 8 great heavens domains. Originally, there was only one Great Brahma who reached the void sky 9th step, but because of Great Brahma's selfishness, the development of the entire heaven domain and the production of experts was limited. Now that you have killed the Great Brahma domain, the Great Brahma domain cannot be without a ruler, Magatama also hurriedly said. Zhuowen frowned and said, I am not a cultivator of the Great Brahma domain. It is not appropriate for me to take over as the ruler of the heavenly domain. Brother Magatama or Yuezu are both good candidates. It may not necessarily be me. Yuezu shook his head and said, Zhuowen, you may not know, but only a cultivator who has reached the 9 steps void sky is qualified to take over as the ruler of the heavenly domain. Otherwise, the entire heavenly domain will be discriminated against by the other heavens and be bullied by the cultivators of the other heavens. The ruler of the heavenly domain is the symbol of every heavenly domain. If the cultivation of the ruler of the heavenly domain is very low, the cultivators of the entire heavenly domain will not be able to raise their heads. At this point, Yuezu looked at Zhuowen and said sincerely, originally, the cultivation of the Great Brahma domain was the lowest among the rulers of the 8 heavens. Now, if the chosen ruler of the heavenly domain is not even at the 9 steps void sky, the Great Brahma domain will really exist in name only. The moon ancestor's words immediately caused the rest of the cultivators to agree. Thinking of the powerful strength that Zhuowen had just displayed, many of the cultivators present were already very convinced of Zhuowen. They couldn't wait for Zhuowen to take over as the lord of the heavenly region of the Great Brahma domain. Zhuowen pondered for a moment and finally decided to agree. He still needed to understand the secrets of the 8 heavens, so he had to search for the Great Brahma Palace. He had killed the Great Brahma domain and did not agree to become the ruler of the Great Brahma domain. If he forcibly searched for the Great Brahma Palace, it would probably attract the opposition of the other cultivators. Chapter 2498. Self-transcendence. After Zhuowen agreed to take over as the lord of the Great Brahma domain, the surrounding cultivators cheered. In fact, many cultivators in the Great Brahma domain were unhappy with Great Brahma's actions over the years. However, Great Brahma was the strongest person in the Great Brahma domain and the ruler of the heaven domain. They didn't dare to say anything openly. Now that Great Brahma had been overthrown, they were naturally celebrating. They let Zhuowen take over as the lord of the Great Brahma domain. Other than Zhuowen destroying Great Brahma, it was also because of Zhuowen's powerful strength. Domain Lord, do you have any suggestions for our Great Brahma domain now? Magatama immediately changed the way he addressed Zhuowen when he saw that Zhuowen had agreed to take over the Great Brahma domain. Zhuowen thought for a moment and said, I have been to other heavenly domains and found that the Great Brahma domain's starry sky energy is the thinnest. Of course, I don't think this is the main reason why the Great Brahma domain is so far behind the other heavenly domains. The main reason is that the previous lord of the heavenly domain, Great Brahma, was stagnant and didn't want to improve. In the end, the gap between the Great Brahma domain and the other heavenly domains widened. Yuezu's beautiful eyes lit up. She looked at Zhuowen and said respectfully, Domain Lord, do you have any better suggestions? Zhuowen said in a deep voice, the starry sky energy near the Great Brahma Palace is the densest in the entire heavenly domain. However, there aren't many people in the Great Brahma Palace. Furthermore, the Great Brahma Palace doesn't recruit any disciples and doesn't allow other forces to enter the vicinity of the Great Brahma Palace. This also causes the space in the core area to be wasted. At this point, Zhuowen paused for a moment and continued, "From now on, other forces are allowed to enter the vicinity of the Great Brahma Palace. However, if they want to obtain the right to enter, they will have to hold a competition between forces. According to the ranking, the positions of each force will be arranged." After Zhuowen finished speaking, the surroundings were in an uproar. Many cultivators with low cultivation were indignant. In their opinion, this arrangement was too unfair. After all, most of the cultivators came from small forces. According to the division of forces, the good positions would definitely be taken by the large forces. They wouldn't even be able to get a share of the soup. Zhuowen calmly looked at the surrounding cultivators. He had expected such a situation to occur, so he continued, "However, I will add a condition. I will build a cultivation ground in the Great Brahma Heaven Palace. Anyone who contributes to the Great Brahma Heaven Palace will be rewarded with contribution points. Then, any cultivator can enter the Great Brahma Heaven Palace to cultivate." Hua. As soon as Zhuowen's suggestion appeared, an uproar instantly arose in the surroundings, surging like a surging tide. No one expected Zhuowen to build a cultivation ground in Great Brahma Heaven Palace and open it to all cultivators in the Heaven Domain. Realm domain. Was to Heaven Domain domain ruler realm ruler master. The Great Brahma Palace was the place where the ruler of the Heaven Realm resided. It gathered the densest and richest energy in the entire Great Brahma Domain. Cultivating in the Great Brahma Palace would definitely be many times faster than cultivating in other places. "Domain Lord, are you sure you want to announce this rule?" Yuezu asked excitedly. Zhuowen's measure was not only helpful to small forces. It was also very helpful to a huge force like the Half Moon Palace. Moreover, this measure emphasized fairness. "Yes, regarding the competition between forces, I will have to trouble Magatama and Yuezu. I still have some matters to deal with." Zhuowen cupped his fists towards Yuezu and Magatama. Then, he led Ziwei Star Lord and Luotian into the Great Brahma Palace. The new Domain Lord is indeed much better than the previous Great Brahma Domain. He even opened up the Great Brahma Palace. How big of a heart does he need to have? Yes, this way, rogue cultivators like us will also have the opportunity to cultivate in the Great Brahma Palace. I know that cultivating in the Great Brahma Palace for a day is equivalent to cultivating in the outside world for a year. It can be seen that the energy in the Great Brahma Palace is much denser than the outside world. I really want to go in and cultivate now. Don't be delusional. It's already good enough that the Domain Lord opened it up. Once the measures are implemented, you have to work hard to earn contribution points. There was a lot of discussion in the surroundings. Magatama and Yuezu looked at each other and went to prepare for the competition. Both of them had a premonition that the Great Brahma Domain would be revitalized in Zhuowen's hands. When Zhuowen entered the Great Brahma Palace, his eyes were filled with shock. What rich energy! How can the energy in the Great Brahma Palace be so dense? Zhuowen's eyes flashed with a strange light. The energy in the Great Brahma Palace may be much weaker than the energy in the ninth heaven on the other side of the Gate of Profundity, but it was much denser than the Heaven Lords of the other heavens. Did you notice? The reason why the Great Brahma Palace is so rich in energy is because the Great Brahma Domain once excavated many starry sky divine veins. All the starry sky divine veins found in the Great Brahma Domain were taken away by the Great Brahma Domain and placed inside the Great Brahma Palace, creating the current Great Brahma Palace. Luotian sneered and continued, "Back then, the Luotian Palace in the far west was destroyed because it opposed the Great Brahma Domain's approach, which led to a huge conflict between the far west and the Great Brahma Domain." Zhuowen said, "So the reason why the Great Brahma Domain's energy is so scarce is also because of the Great Brahma Domain?" Yes, the Great Brahma Domain is selfish and only cares about the benefits in front of him. He can sacrifice the benefits of the entire Heaven Domain. This is also the main reason why the Great Brahma Domain is so unpopular in the Heaven Domain, Luotian said. Zhuowen shook his head. In his opinion, the Great Brahma Domain's approach was too stupid. If the Great Brahma Domain could win the hearts of the people, Zhuoan would have to face the condemnation of the entire heaven domain if he killed the great Brahma domain today. Although he, Zhuoan, would still be fine, at least his reputation and status would be severely damaged. It would be even more impossible for him to become the new heaven lord of the great Brahma domain. The great Brahma palace was very spacious. There weren't many rooms inside, but the central hall was incomparably huge. In front of the hall, there was a flight of stairs. At the top of the stairs was a magnificent seat. This should be the place where the great Brahma domain usually sat today. Zhuoan walked into the hall and looked at Luotian without saying a word. Luotian gave a self-deprecating smile. She knew what Zhuoan meant and said, "Don't worry, protect me. I will now begin to transcend myself. It will take 49 days and I will not be disturbed during this period. At that time, Chen Shui will regain control of her body and inherit her cultivation." Chapter 2499. When Shui Gong Goddess Luo nodded. She reached out her slender hand and took out many materials from her spirit ring. Zhuoan even saw the blood of some kind of beast and some strange talismans. He knew that these should be the materials for Goddess Luo's ritual. Luotian waved her hand and a fiery red flame shot out from her hand. This flame enveloped all the materials in the surroundings. When the surrounding materials were all burned into gas by the flames, the fiery red flames turned blood red. Clearly, these materials had been integrated into the flames. Su. The blood-red flame wrapped around Goddess Luo. Goddess Luo laid on the ground with her eyes closed. Zhuoan placed a restriction around Goddess Luo to protect her from being disturbed by the outside world. Of course, Zhuoan's divine sense was constantly paying attention to Goddess Luo's sea of consciousness. As long as he found out that Goddess Luo had any evil intentions, he would immediately stop the ritual and destroy her. Fortunately, Zhuoan did not find any strange movements from Goddess Luo after observing for a long time. Moreover, in his divine sense, Goddess Luo's sea of consciousness did not touch the other half of Chen Shui's divine soul. Instead, Goddess Luo's divine soul was wrapped in the power of the ritual and was slowly dispersing. This dispersing speed was very slow. To Goddess Luo, there was no pain at all. Instead, it was much more peaceful. 49 days passed very quickly. Zhuoan basically guarded Goddess Luo. His divine sense did not relax for a moment. He was always paying attention to Goddess Luo's sea of consciousness. Purple Star Monarch sat on the side with a yawn, cultivating in boredom. Actually, he was just putting on an act. After breaking through the three extremes, the road ahead was completely confusing to him. He did not know what the road after the three extremes was. If I knew that there was a Tao-confirming realm, I wouldn't have chosen the three extremes even if I died. Now that I've reached the three extremes, I'm even more confused than before. Damn it. Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign muttered in frustration. The three extreme realms were originally an alternative cultivation method. It was not mature at all, so Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign did not know how to continue cultivating. Now, apart from consolidating his three extremities and familiarizing himself with the fusion and utilization of extremities, Myrtle Star Monarch couldn't cultivate at all. Suddenly, a soft explosion interrupted Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign's train of thought. Luotian, who had been motionless all this time, finally moved. The blood-red flames around Luotian dissipated, and Luotian slowly opened her eyes. When Zhuoan saw the look in Luotian's eyes, he shuddered and revealed a look of excitement. He was all too familiar with this gaze. It was Mu Chenshue's gaze. Chen Shui. Zhuoan's voice became a bit hoarse as he softly called out. Mu Chenshue's eyes were filled with confusion at first, but then she heard the familiar hoarse voice. She subconsciously turned her head and saw the face she had been thinking about day and night. Husband. Mu Chenshui softly said and threw herself into Zhuoan's arms, tears of excitement flowing out of her eyes. Hugging Mu Chenshui's delicate body and smelling the fragrance of her body, Zhuoan was extremely satisfied. The two hugged each other without saying a word, quietly feeling each other. Aya, looks like I have to leave. Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign's mouth twitched. He found an excuse and ran out of the hall. After a long time, Zhuowen placed his hands on Mu Chenshue's shoulders and sighed, "I'm sorry. I let Luotian take advantage of the situation." Mu Chunshue shook her head and said, "Husband, it's not your fault. I can only blame myself for being too weak. Moreover, Luotian is a pretty good person. She didn't forcefully take over my body, but used a symbiotic method. Moreover, my cultivation realm has also advanced to the life comprehension realm with Sister Luotian's help." Zhuowen nodded. Mu Chunshue wasn't without benefits. At least her cultivation had been raised by Mu Chunshue. Especially the phoenix bloodline that Mu Chunshue had displayed before, its power was terrifying. Zhuowen knew that with Luotian's help, Mu Chenshue's phoenix bloodline was much stronger than before. It's a pity that Sister Luotian has already transcended. Mu Chunshue was a little sad. Zhuowen was a little embarrassed and said, "If Luotian doesn't transcend, how can you take control of your body?" Mu Chenshui shook her head and said, "Actually, Sister Luotian doesn't need 49 days to transcend. The reason why she did it was all for me. Those materials from before were to completely awaken the phoenix bloodline in my body and consolidate my cultivation realm. If I'm not wrong, my cultivation is already half a step into the death comprehension realm. As long as I comprehend the profound death divine energy, I can break through the death comprehension realm." Zhuowen's eyes revealed a look of understanding. He finally knew why Luotian had to do this ceremony. It was to compensate Mu Chunshue. Thinking of his bad attitude towards Luotian, Zhuowen felt a little guilty. He knew that he had wronged Luotian. Is there any leeway to persuade her to stay? Zhuowen smiled bitterly. Mu Chenshui shook her head and gently said, "No, but this was something that Sister Luotian did of her own free will. She no longer had any attachment to this world and only her hatred for Lord Brahma kept her going. Now that Lord Brahma is dead, her wish has been fulfilled." So, Zhuowen nodded. Mu Chunshue was right. When Luotian was transcending, her expression was indeed calm and gentle. Zhuowen and Mu Chunshue were affectionate for a while more. Then, Purple Star Sovereign ran in from outside Brahma Palace. "Brother Zhuo, the tournament of forces has been arranged. Uezu and Magatama are waiting outside the palace for your instructions," Purple Star Sovereign said. "Okay. I'll go out now." Zhuowen walked out of Brahma Palace with Mu Chunshue. He immediately noticed that the starry sky in front of Brahma Palace was filled with countless cultivators. Looking carefully, these cultivators were all in their own camps. They were scattered into small regions. Obviously, each region represented a different force. When Zhuowen appeared outside Brahma Palace, he immediately attracted the attention of countless forces. Then, DKY involuntarily cast a fearful gaze at Zhuowen. "Territorial Lord, we have prepared all the preparations for the tournament of forces according to your instructions. I wonder if Territorial Lord has any orders or requests for this tournament?" Uezu asked respectfully. Zhuowen nodded and said indifferently, "I'll have to trouble Uezu and Magatama. My Brahma Palace will be renamed Wen Shui Palace. Are the two of you willing to become the left and right guardians of Wen Shui Palace? In the future, you can freely enter Wen Shui Palace and cultivate inside." Chapter 2500. Secret. Let the tournament of forces begin. After deciding that Magatama and Uezu would be the left and right protectors of the Wen Snow Palace, Zhuowen announced the start of the tournament of forces to the cultivators below. Magatama and Uezu were very responsible and began to take care of the matters related to the tournament of forces. They had already made the preparations for the tournament of forces. Now that Zhuowen had announced the start of the tournament of forces, the two of them began to deal with the matters of the tournament of forces in an orderly manner. Zhuowen stood on the steps of the Wen Snow Palace and watched the tournament of forces being carried out in an orderly manner. He nodded to himself. The tournament of forces that Magatama and Uezu had organized was quite perfect. There were basically no flaws and Zhuowen was quite satisfied with it. The tournament of forces was nothing more than the selection of outstanding disciples from each force. They would compete in the arena and the rules were naturally an elimination system. 3 days later, the tournament of forces finally came to an end. The corresponding ranking of the forces was also selected. The first place was naturally the Half Moon Palace. The second place was the Heavenly Devil Island. The third, fourth and fifth places were the Chi Refining Sword Sect, White Jade Tower and Flower Butterfly Valley respectively. These 5 forces were originally the forces of the 10 great sects in the Great Brahma domain. They were among the top among the countless forces in the Great Brahma domain. As for the remaining 5 of the 10 great sects, such as the Heaven and Earth sect and Void sect, they had already been eliminated before Zhuoan left the Great Brahma domain. Uezu and Magatama arranged for the people from their respective forces to arrange the selected sects and arrange the corresponding residences for these sects. As for the forces that were eliminated, they were somewhat depressed. However, they quickly regained their composure and became even more enthusiastic. This was because they knew that the new ruler of the Sky region was planning to build a public cultivation area in the Wen Snow Palace to provide them with a better cultivation environment. Of course, if one wished to enter the Wen Shui Palace to train, one would naturally need a corresponding amount of contribution points. The Wen Shui Palace would naturally announce the contribution point system after the public training grounds were established. Magatama, Uezu, the construction of the cultivation area will depend on you. You can do whatever you want with the main hall in the center of the Wen Snow Palace. That's right, Chen Shui, I'll leave the supervision matter to you. Zhuoan suddenly turned to look at Mu Chunxue beside him and said this in a gentle voice. Mu Chunxue revealed a faint smile and said, Chen Shui, I will take care of the supervision matter Chen Shui. Also, Big Sister Luotian once told me that most of the secrets of Great Brahma Heaven are kept in an extremely sealed room. That room is located in the deepest part of Great Brahma Heaven Palace. You can take a look there. Shui chen shui yu shui chen shui yu. Is there a need to thank me between us? Mu Chunxue said as she rolled her eyes at Zhuoan. Zhuoan gave a laugh and gave Mu Chunxue a fierce kiss. Then, he walked into the depths of the Wen Snow Palace while laughing. Only Mu Chunxue was left with a red face as she stomped her feet. The surrounding cultivators were all secretly laughing in their hearts. Brat, about Moyan Wushang, aren't you going to tell that girl? The thunder fire sword flew out of the spirit ring on its own. Xiao Hei sat on the sword's hilt and spoke in a rare serious tone. The spirit ring was personally refined by Zhuoan. It had already been set by Zhuoan so that Xiao Hei could freely enter and exit the spirit ring. So, every time Xiao Hei left the spirit ring, she did not need Zhuoan's permission. The smile on Zhuoan's face faded. He sighed softly and said, let's talk about this when I leave the Great Brahma domain for the Huaxia domain. Let's wait until the matters in the Great Brahma domain are settled. Hearing Zhuoan's words, Xiao Hei remained silent. After a while, Zhuoan came to the deepest part of the Wen Snow Palace. At the end of the depths, he saw a simple and unadorned door. The surface of this door was flowing with light and vibrant colors. It was obvious that a powerful restriction had been set up. Zhuoan's current divine sense was extremely powerful. Moreover, his array Dao level was not low. He immediately saw that the surface of this door was a combination of a level 8 concealment array and a level 8 defense array. After observing for a moment, Zhuoan began to crack this hybrid array. Soon, the array was completely cracked. Opening the door, Zhuoan found that behind the door was a spacious study. There were rows of desks in the study, and many ancient books were placed on top of them. Zhuoan's divine sense swept out, and the contents of the books in the study appeared in his mind at a glance. What made Zhuoan speechless was that the books in here were all mortal books. He did not know why the Great Brahma domain wanted to collect mortal books in the Great Brahma Palace. After carefully scanning, Zhuoan found a black jade slip in an iron-bound book at the bottom of the bookshelf in the deepest part of the study. Zhuoan took a step forward, took out the iron-bound book, opened it, and took out the black jade slip inside. The surface of this iron-bound book actually has a layer of restriction that shields divine sense. If my divine sense was not strong enough, I would not have discovered that there was such a black jade slip in this iron-bound book. Zhuoan muttered in a low voice. Immediately, His divine sense drilled into the black jade slip and began to carefully read the contents of the jade slip. After reading it, Zhuowen put down the jade slip, and his eyes began to become dignified and serious. This jade slip was left by the great Brahma domain. It records the secrets of the 8 heavens and also introduces the higher-level heavens outside the 8 heavens. They don't know the name of the heavens, so they call it the 9th heaven. In the introduction of the jade slip, there is only one way to go from the 8 heavens to the 9th heaven, and that is to cross the outer space and go to the end of the endless starry sky. At the other end of the heavenly chasm is the real 9th heaven. Over the countless years, many Tao-confirming powerhouses have left the 8 heavens, and most of them left through this heavenly chasm. Moreover, it is said that this heavenly chasm is extremely dangerous. Even a real Tao-confirming powerhouse has the risk of dying in the heavenly chasm, and the two extremes of life and death are extremely dangerous. This jade slip also mentioned the origins of the 8 heavens. The origins of the 8 heavens are not the heaven-breaking origin, but the heavenly Tao origin bred by the heavenly Tao. Zhuowen frowned slightly. There was not much information about the heavenly Tao origin in this jade slip. It is said that this thing is necessary for Tao-confirming cultivators. If one doesn't have enough heavenly Tao origin, even if they can comprehend it, the failure rate of Tao-confirming is very high. In the 9th heaven, the heavenly Tao origin is very easy to buy, but in the 8 heavens, it is extremely rare. It is said that when the 8 heavens were just born, there were also many heavenly Tao origins. Many cultivators relied on the heavenly Tao origin to successfully confirm their Tao and become Tao-confirming powerhouses. However, after these Tao-confirming powerhouses successfully confirmed their Tao, they left the 8 heavens and went to the 9th heaven. This also caused the heavenly Tao origin in the 8 heavens to be constantly consumed. In the end, only the heavenly Tao origin was left, which was hidden deep in the hands of the heavenly lords of the 8 heavens. After reading it, Zhuowen revealed a thoughtful look. He recalled the door of profundity in the 6 desires heavenly domain. On the other side of the Gate of Wonders, there is a starry sky energy that is far richer than that of the 8 heavens. He has always guessed that it is the 9th heaven. Chapter 2501. Starry sky divine vein apart from the 9th heaven, where else could it be? Zhuowen shook his head, thinking that he was being too sensitive. He actually suspected that the other side of the door of profundity wasn't the 9th heaven. If I want to go to the 9th heaven, it's best to go through the door of profundity. In Zhuowen's opinion, the door of profundity is much safer than the heavenly moat. Leaving the 8 heavens through the door of profundity should be the safest way. It's just that Zhuowen is worried that Sakyamuni and the others have already discovered the door of profundity. Did they also enter the other side of the barrier? Of course, Zhuowen isn't surprised that Sakyamuni and the others entered the other side of the barrier. What he is mainly worried about is that Sakyamuni and the others will seal the place where the door of profundity is located. Now, Zhuowen's strength had indeed improved a lot, but Sakra's side had the lords of 6 heavens. If these lords of 6 heavens were to join forces to lay down the seal, Zhuowen himself didn't have the confidence to break it. What Zhuowen doesn't know is that the other side of the door of profundity is even more dangerous than the heavenly moat. Putting away the jade slip, Zhuowen checked the study again. This time, he checked more carefully. After entering the Great Brahma Heavenly Palace, Zhuowen hasn't seen any resources. He doesn't believe that the dignified Great Brahma Heavenly Palace doesn't have anything in his palace. All of a sudden, Zhuowen let out a soft cry of surprise. Soon after, his divine sense landed on the last row of bookshelves. He discovered a small magic array at the bottom. This array was drawn with blood. Due to the passage of time, the dried bloodstains were a little black. Concealment array. Zhuowen waved his sleeve and put the last row of bookshelves aside. He looked at the blood-red array under his feet solemnly. This blood-red formation wasn't an ordinary concealment formation. Instead, it was drawn with one's own blood essence, and could only be unraveled with the corresponding blood essence. Furthermore, this array formation was emitting a faint, ominous aura. Zhuowen knew that if he made a mistake in his method of unlocking it, This blood-red array formation would most likely unleash some sort of attack. Zhuowen sneered. His divine sense turned into a storm and slammed into the blood-red array. Instantly, the blood-red array was activated. Then, the blazing blood-red light turned into a ferocious, blood-red beast that suddenly rushed toward Zhuowen. Soul kill. Zhuowen sneered and immediately used the soul kill technique. In an instant, his divine sense turned into a monstrous killing intent. The moment the blood mutant beast came into contact with this divine sense killing intent, it collapsed. However, this blood-red formation was clearly unusual. The moment the blood-red beast collapsed, several more blood-red beasts appeared, and each one was stronger than the last. If an ordinary life enlightenment stage cultivator encountered this blood-red formation, they would definitely be in an extremely difficult situation. Unfortunately, the one they encountered was Zhuowen. Although his cultivation wasn't high, his divine sense was too terrifying. It was comparable to the life and death stage experts. These blood-red beasts were all completely annihilated by Zhuowen using the soul kill technique. When the last blood-red beast was finally killed by Zhuowen, the blood-red formation collapsed and a dark cave appeared under Zhuowen's feet. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly. He controlled his body and slowly descended into the dark cave. When he landed at the bottom, his eyes revealed a look of vigilance. His divine sense radiated out and paid attention to the surroundings. But soon, he found that his vigilance was completely unnecessary. What appeared in front of him was a space similar to a natural cave. In front of this space, Zhuowen saw many starry sky divine veins. These starry sky divine veins were all top-grade starry sky divine veins. None of them were inferior. There were too many starry sky divine veins. They were intertwined like tree roots deep in the soil. No wonder the Great Brahma Palace's starry sky energy is so rich. It turns out that there are so many starry sky divine veins under the Great Brahma Palace. Zhuowen looked at the many starry sky divine veins in front of him and couldn't help but be shocked. This was definitely the largest number of starry sky divine veins he had ever seen. He had a lot of starry sky divine veins, but compared to the starry sky divine veins under the Great Brahma Palace, they were simply dwarfed. In the middle of these complex starry sky divine veins, there was a passage that only one person could pass through. This passage should have been opened by the Great Brahma Palace. Zhuowen followed this passage and walked towards the depths of the starry sky divine veins. When he reached the deepest part of the starry sky divine veins, there was a space the size of a football field. This space was completely opened up by countless starry sky divine veins. Moreover, the starry sky energy here was many times richer than in the Great Brahma Heavenly Palace. Zhuowen even saw a praying mat here. At the same time, he saw piles of resources around the space. These resources included divine herbs, divine pills, divine weapons, and various materials for refining weapons and elixirs. Hey, there's actually a passage in this space? Zhuowen found another passage at the end of this space. Without thinking, he went in and found a similar space at the end of the passage. In this similar space, Zhuowen naturally saw another passageway, as well as many cultivation resources. Thus, Zhuowen followed the passageways one after another, finding one space after another. When he stopped at the last space, he found that there were a total of 108 spaces inside the starry sky divine veins. Each space had a lot of resources. This was definitely the most resources Zhuowen had ever seen. It was obvious that the Great Brahma Palace had collected a lot of resources over the years. The Rika people can cultivate in the starry sky divine veins in the future, Zhuowen said with a burning gaze. However, when he thought about the size of the Rika people, he knew that there wasn't enough space. I'll let my avatar cultivate here and use the devouring power to absorb all the starry sky energy into my inner world. This way, the Rika people should be able to benefit from it. Zhuowen calmed down and murmured softly. With this thought, Zhuowen ordered his avatar to store all the resources in his inner world. Of course, some of the divine herbs, divine pills, and materials that were useful to Zhuowen were left in his spiritual ring. The Rika people in his inner world obviously felt the sudden increase in starry sky energy. Many of them were chanting Zhuowen's name. After doing all this, 3 days passed unknowingly. Zhuowen walked out of the study and found Crepe Myrtle Star, Mu Chunxue, Yuezu, and Magatama waiting for him in the main hall. Husband, the arrangements have been made for the forces that have qualified for the Tournament of Forces. Yuezu and Magatama would like to discuss the cultivation space with you. Chapter 2502. Apricot Flower Village. Zhuowen hugged Mu Chunxue, then looked at Magatama and Yuezu. You don't need to ask me about the cultivation area, just build it according to your own ideas. Also, I have already given the information about the contribution point system to Magatama. When the time comes, you just need to follow his instructions. My wife and I will be leaving for a period of time, so I'll leave the Wen Shui Palace to you. Also, while I'm away, Brother Ziwei will replace me and take over the position of the Heaven Domain Lord. Magatama and Yuezu quickly bowed in response, but they felt helpless in their hearts. This Zhuowen was clearly the Heaven Domain Lord, but he was the most carefree one, basically being a hands-off shopkeeper. However, the two of them quite liked Zhuowen's method of free rearing. After saying this, Zhuowen hugged Mu Chunxue's slender waist and left the Wen Shui Palace. Ziwei Star Monarch secretly muttered, "It's good to be young." After leaving the Wen Shui Palace, Zhuowen immediately took out the space-time wheel and flew in a certain direction. 3 days later, Zhuowen stopped at an extremely beautiful star field. This star field was multicolored, and it looked dazzling and beautiful. Husband, where is this? Mu Chunxue looked at this beautiful star field in surprise. Zhuowen landed on a majestic mountain peak, hugging Mu Chunxue, smelling the latter's fragrance. He said, "Chen Shui, I want to accompany you during this period of time. Below this mountain peak, there is a small village. Let's be like a normal husband and wife, working at sunrise and resting at sunset." Mu Chunxue hugged Zhuowen's neck and said softly, "Husband, do you have something to do?" Mu Chunxue understood Zhuowen very well. She knew that Zhuowen wanted to accompany her at this moment. It should be a kind of compensation. In other words, after accompanying her this time, Zhuowen would definitely have to go on a long trip. Zhuowen looked at Mu Chunxue and said with a sigh, "Yes, after the matters in the Great Brahma domain come to an end, I need to make a trip to the infinite Taishu of the Hua Xia heavenly domain. It's about Wushang." Zhuowen slowly told Mu Chunxue everything that happened in the Six Desires heavenly domain, as well as Mo Yang Wushang's transformation into Desireless. Zhuowen looked at Mu Chunxue in silence. Finally, he said, "Chen Shui, thank you." Mu Chunxue shook her head. Her beautiful eyes fell on the small village at the foot of the mountain. She said with a smile, "We have been married for so many years, but we haven't had the chance to experience the life of a husband and wife. You are mine now." Zhuowen said with a smile, "Of course." Apricot Blossom Village was a village that was isolated from the rest of the world. Apricot Blossom Village wasn't very big. There were only 100 families inside. The closest town to Apricot Blossom Village was half a day's journey away. Other than that, Apricot Blossom Village was surrounded by green mountains and clear waters. The environment was beautiful and tranquil. On this day, an ordinary couple came to Apricot Blossom Village. The man had dark skin and was a little thin. The woman was weak and sickly, as if she could be blown away by a gust of wind. This couple was very simple and honest. The villagers of Apricot Blossom Village quickly accepted them. Especially the man, he was very kind. When he went deep into the mountains to chop firewood, he would often bring back some game and share it with the neighbors. Very quickly, this couple had a good reputation among the neighbors. The neighbors all praised this couple for being kind and hardworking. Moreover, this couple was well known for their love in Apricot Blossom Village. Every morning, the man would carry a hatchet and leave the house. The wife would stand at the door and watch the man leave. Only when the man's back disappeared into the sunset would she look away. In the evening, the man would carry a pile of firewood and lead some game back under the sunset. Every time, the wife would wait at the door for the man to come back. Every time she saw the man coming back under the sunset, the wife would reveal a happy smile. Time passed year after year. This couple had reached middle age. The man's hair had turned white and the wife's hair had turned white. Perhaps it was because they were middle-aged, but the man no longer had the strength to go deep into the mountains to chop firewood. In order to make a living, the man began to learn carving. Every day, he would sit in front of the door and focus on carving different wood carvings with a carving knife. His wife would squat at the side and watch the man carve. On this day, a group of children happily passed by the couple's door. They happened to see the middle-aged man sitting at the door, focused on carving a palm-sized python. Looking carefully, this python was lifelike. The scales on its surface did not look like snake scales, but more like dragon scales. "Uncle Joueur, is this a snake you're carving? Why is this snake so much more powerful than ordinary snakes? It's like a dragon. Is this really a snake?" A bold and oldest boy came to the door of the middle-aged man's house and looked at the strange creature that was neither a snake nor a dragon in the middle-aged man's hand and asked curiously. The middle-aged man stopped carving and looked up at the boy with a smile. "It's a dragon. This is not a snake. This is a flood dragon that is about to turn into a dragon. So the scales on this flood dragon are beginning to transform into dragon scales. It's a flood dragon? I've heard the storytellers in the village say that the flood dragon is a legendary divine beast. It's very terrifying and is even more powerful than immortals that fly into the sky. I've heard that the flood dragon even eats people, so it's very terrifying," the boy named Da Long said as his eyes lit up. "Ha, ha, Da Long is smart. This is a flood dragon," the middle-aged man laughed. Then he patted his head and said, "I almost forgot. I've already finished the wooden bowls your father told me to make yesterday. I'll have my wife bring them to you now." After saying this, the middle-aged man shouted into the house, "Chen Shui, bring out the 12 wooden bowls I made yesterday. Da Long is here to get them today." A clear and melodious voice replied from within the house. Soon after, a middle-aged woman who still retained her charm slowly walked out. She held a wooden tray in her hand, and on the tray were 12 exquisite wooden bowls. If one did not look carefully at these wooden bowls, they would think that they were made of jade. It was enough to pass off as real. Da Long looked at the middle-aged woman in the house and his eyes revealed a look of shock. Uncle Jouer's wife was famous. Da Long had heard his father mention her since he was young. He said that Uncle Jouer's wife, Aunt Shui, was one of the top beauties in the city. "Da Long, what are you looking at? Quickly take this wooden bowl," the middle-aged woman said with a gentle smile. Dalong came back to his senses and his face flushed red. He hurriedly took the wooden bowl and expressed his gratitude. Then, he took out 12 copper coins from his bosom and said, "Uncle Jouer, your craftsmanship is so good. My father often praises you. This is 12 copper coins, take it." The middle-aged man laughed as he took the copper coins and said, "Ha, ha, you're too kind. If your family needs anything in the future, just come find me. That's for sure." Chapter 2503. Wood carving. Spring passed and autumn came. Time flew by. Zhuowen sat in front of his house and carved wood every day. After that, he would accompany his wife, Mu Chenxue, to eat and chat about daily life. Occasionally, he would even visit the neighbors nearby. Every time he carved, Mu Chenxue would silently watch. Moreover, she also knew that regardless of whether Zhuowen was carving a human or a beast, they were all the enemies and beasts that Zhuowen had killed over the years. Every time he finished carving, Zhuowen would sink into his memories and recall the various details of the battle. It could be said that as he carved deeper, Zhuowen's understanding of his own body became deeper. "Uncle Jouer, you're carving again? You're really persistent. You've been carving for more than 20 years, haven't you?" When a young man passed by Zhuowen's house, he subconsciously stopped and immediately looked at the door. When he saw that Zhuowen was still carving wood, he could not help but laugh. The young man was in his early 20s. His wheat-colored skin showed the beauty of health. His well-proportioned body and firm muscles made him look quite strong. "Dalong, in the blink of an eye, you've already grown so big." Zhuowen put down his carving knife and looked at the young man at the door with a smile. This young man was Dalong, who came to Zhuowen's house more than 10 years ago to get the wooden bowl. 10 years ago, Dailong's family left Apricot Blossom Village and went to a nearby town to do business. At that time, the villagers did not send Dailong's family off. Everyone praised Dailong's father for his ability to buy a house in the town. The young man chuckled, but his gaze fell on the wood carving in Zhuowen's hands. The wood carving in Zhuowen's hands was only half completed. The upper half of the wood carving was clear, but the lower half had not been carved yet. What surprised the young man was that Zhuowen was carving a figure at this time. Moreover, this figure actually had 3 heads and 6 arms. The 3 heads and 6 arms of this strange figure had different expressions. The 6 arms were also forming 6 different hand seals. It looked quite strange. "Uncle Zhuo, what kind of strange figure are you carving? It even has 3 heads and 6 arms," Dailong said curiously. Zhuowen smiled and said, "This is just something I made out of boredom. I don't know what it is either." Dailong's interest was piqued. The 3-headed, 6-armed monster in front of him looked very lifelike. He could clearly see the texture of its skin. This made Dailong marvel at Zhuowen's craftsmanship. "Uncle Zhuo, I really like this carving of yours. How about this? Why don't you sell it to me?" Dailong smiled. Zhuowen's face was solemn. He stroked his white beard and said, "Dailong, you know my rules. This wood carving is my hobby. I usually don't sell it," so Dailong looked disappointed, but he really liked the wood carving. However, seeing Uncle Zhuo's insistence, Dailong had to give up. "Uncle Zhuo, I came back to the village this time because my father is old and wants to go back to his hometown to enjoy his old age. Moreover, my father is weak and sickly now. It's a little inconvenient for him to walk, so Uncle Zhuo, can you help me make a crutch for my father?" Dailong asked earnestly. Zhuowen smiled and said, "No problem." As he spoke, he randomly chose a slender piece of wood in the courtyard. Immediately, the carving knife in his hand began to carve on the wood. Dailong looked enviously at Zhuowen's smooth movements. Speaking of which, Uncle Zhuo was about the same age as his father. He was already in his 50s. However, Uncle Zhuo in front of him did not look old at all. His movements were as smooth as a young man in his early 20s. If it wasn't for the numerous wrinkles on Zhuowen's face, Dailong wouldn't have believed that Zhuowen was an old man who was about to enter his 70s with just this move alone. Done. After half an hour, Zhuowen put down the carving knife with satisfaction and handed the finished crutch to Dailong. Dailong's eyes lit up. The crutch in front of him was definitely the most comfortable crutch he had ever seen in his life. Moreover, when he held the crutch in his hand, he felt his whole body tremble. It was as if a warm current was spreading from his palm to his entire body. "Thank you, Uncle Zhuo. Here are 10 taels of silver. Take it." Dailong looked at the crutch with great satisfaction, then took out 10 taels of silver and handed it to Zhuowen. Unfortunately, Zhuowen did not take it. Instead, he looked at Dailong seriously and said, "Dailong, didn't I say that I have my own rules? The price of the crutch is 10 copper coins. I can't accept these 10 taels of silver." Dailong looked embarrassed and said embarrassedly, "Uncle Zhuo, I was too impulsive. I haven't been here for too long, so I forgot about your rules. Here are 10 copper coins. Please take it." Zhuowen took the 10 copper coins and nodded with satisfaction. He picked up the unfinished wooden carving and began to carve again. "Uncle Zhuo, are you sure you don't want to sell this wooden carving?" Dailong looked at the wooden carving in Zhuowen's hands and asked. Zhuowen shook his head and answered Dailong's question. "Uncle Zhuo, I'll take my leave first." Dailong sighed softly and took his leave. "Husband, I heard from the neighbors that Dailong was the top scorer in heavy rain country. It's said that the king admires Dailong and specially betrothed the princess to Dailong." A woman with wrinkles on her face walked out of the house. From the woman's facial features, it could be seen that when she was young, she was definitely a beauty. Zhuowen put down the carving knife and looked at the woman with a smile. "It's good that Dailong is promising. It will be good for the village." The woman nodded and said with a smile, I also heard that Da Long planned to renovate the houses in the village and the dilapidated temple in the suburbs in addition to sending his father back to his hometown. It's good that he has such intentions. Zhuowen paused for a moment, and his eyes showed a hint of contemplation. Husband, Da Long has been a strong child since he was young. I don't think he has ever asked you for anything. On the contrary, he often helps you, Mu Chunxue suddenly said. Zhuowen smiled and said, I know. After I finish this wood carving, I'll give it to Da Long as a memento. Mu Chunxue smiled and said, when the time comes, the child will be overjoyed. As night fell, a sneaky figure entered the low house. The figure quickly entered the living room of the stone house. There were rows of shelves in the living room, and on the shelves were various kinds of wood carvings. The figure quickly noticed that under a shelf in the corner, there was an unfinished wood carving. The wood carving had 3 heads and 6 arms, and it was very lifelike. The moment he saw the wood carving, the figure was full of energy. He picked up the half-finished wood carving and looked at it carefully. His eyes showed satisfaction. Soon, the figure became hesitant. He took out a palm-sized brocade bag and placed it in the original position of the wood carving. Uncle Zhuo, I'm sorry. I really like this wood carving. I'll be leaving tomorrow. I'm afraid I won't have the chance to return to Apricot Flower Village. I don't want to miss this wood carving. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.